are the Newsroom. Hello, and a very good morning to you from Johannesburg here in South Africa. We're broadcasting to you live from Auckland Park. That's where our studios and our HQ is situated here at SABC News. Between 9 and 12, this show is also live on YouTube. You can watch us on demand there or live in the office without anybody knowing. But just don't tell the boss. Anyhow, today's question, we're dealing with Rwandan genocide. We're looking 22 years on. What can South Africa and the rest of the African continent learn from the Rwandan process that they've gone through? The language of genocide is something that we'll specifically focus on when we have this discussion today. Myself and Elvis will be all over it for most of the rest of the day. But before we get there, of course, there's lots of news in the offing. Let's go to Elvis on the news desk to give us that update.
That's right, Evan. Let's take it right from the top on all your news headlines. Wednesday, August the 3rd. That is the date being set aside for the 2016 local municipal elections. The Mthatha High Court in the Eastern Cape will today deliver judgment in the case involving Winnie Madikizela Mandela and the late Nelson Mandela's executors. And the ANC's new parliamentary chief whip, Jackson Mthembu, has questioned the legal advice the party and parliament were given on the Nkandla matter. Now, those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makamate what's happening on the sports front.
Thank you very much, Elvis. This is what we've got for you in the sports, and good morning to you at home as well. Gary, how about this? Yes! Gary Player, at the age of 80, sinks a hole-in-one at the 115-yard 7th hole in the par 3 contest on the eve of the 2016 Masters. And Real Madrid suffer a shock first leg defeat to UEFA Champions League quarter-final debutants, Wolfsburg.
Defending poorly, and it's two! This is sensational! Wolfsburg 2, Real Madrid 0.
All this as Swiss police raid UEFA headquarters looking for a contract reportedly signed by former UEFA official Gianni Infantino. All this and more we've got for you at 10:20 or so. Be back for that for sports. Back to you, Elvis.
Thank you, Kendall. He will be back a little bit later, so you'll have to stay tuned. Wednesday, August the 3rd, has been set for the 2016 local municipal elections. Now, that announcement was made by the President, Jacob Zuma, yesterday. The IEC has its work cut out. Now that the election date has been proclaimed, the election machinery kicks in. Meanwhile, the IEC says it's ready for voter registrations this coming weekend. It hopes that more youngsters and the youth will register to vote. Registration stations will be open from 8 till 5 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday. So now you can go out in your numbers and register to vote. For those of you who haven't had the chance or the first opportunity, go out and vote this coming weekend. The African National Congress new parliamentary chief whip, Jackson Mthembu, has questioned the legal advice that the party and parliament were given on the Nkandla matter. Mthembu apologized for the resolution the ANC majority in parliament took on the Nkandla reports. But the party stands by its decision to not remove the president from office. The DA will meanwhile start parliamentary disciplinary processes today against ANC MPs. The opposition party says the ANC caucus in parliament must be held accountable.
The media. The new chief whip wouldn't budge on the party's vote to back the president. But he had questions on how they managed to get to this point.
We are sorry. Because we gave an impression that indeed what we did was correct. But as we all know, the court has set aside that resolution of Parliament. But did we need a court to set aside? Should we on our own not have been aware?
He was referring to the ANC resolution that the president was not liable to repay anything on the upgrades at his home. Mthembu says they will be meeting with Speaker Baleka Mbete to discuss the legal advice Parliament is getting. Mthembu and his deputy Doris Lakude, however, insists that Zuma never refused to pay back the money. But the ANC caucus agree that the Constitutional Court judgment should be followed by both President and Parliament. Abra Barbia, SABC News, Parliament.
The High Court in the Eastern Cape will today deliver judgment in the case involving Winnie Madikizela Mandela and the late Nelson Mandela's executors. Last month, a full bench of judges heard her application, seeking to be given the rights to the former president Nelson Mandela's house in Qunu outside Mthatha. Madikizela Mandela's lawyers argued that in terms of the customary marriage, she is the rightful owner of the house in Qunu. But Nelson Mandela's executors opposed the application, arguing that civil marriage supersedes the customary one. SABC's Zimkhitha Maqinana now joins us from Mthatha, the High Court there. Very good morning to you, Zimkhitha, and welcome. What can we expect from the court today?
A very good morning and a warm welcome to the Eastern Cape, Elvis. A lot of people are expected to converge to this High Court this morning to hear the judgment based on the arguments that were made by both counsel last month in front of a full bench of judges onto whether Winnie Madikizela Mandela is the rightful owner of the Qunu home or whether the executors, as stated in the will of former President Nelson Mandela, are the rightful owners to administer and continue living in that homestead at Qunu. However, that decision will be based on the judgment that will be made inside this court this afternoon. We have seen already local and national journalists making way into this High Court to wait that decision so that they can take it through the country, because this is a high-profile case as it involves the first democratic president of South Africa, and also that this is a will that is being disputed here. So everyone is waiting eagerly on whether the decision will be to grant Winnie Madikizela Mandela or the executors of the estate will remain the rightful owners of the home.
Zimkhitha, just take us back and give us some background to this whole matter.
What was tabled in court last month by Winnie Madikizela Mandela's lawyers is that she is the one who acquired the land at Qunu. She is the one who went with the chiefs and kings of that area and was given the right to occupy that land. And what was tabled on the other side by the lawyer of Nelson Mandela is that in 1995, the Department of Land Affairs donated the land to Nelson Mandela, and he gave back money as a token of appreciation for that donation. So it was no longer Winnie Madikizela Mandela's land after that donation. It then belonged to Nelson Mandela. That was some of the heads of arguments that were made inside this court last month. However, she was then putting the issue of customary marriage on the spotlight, saying that she is the rightful owner, whether it was donated to Madiba or not, because they were married both in civil and in customary marriage. So she was questioning that part, that even though they were divorced in civil marriage inside a court of law, however, their customary marriage remained intact. She cited a few reasons why she believed the customary marriage was not dissolved. She says the Mandela family never went back to the Madikizela family to say that we no longer want Winnie as our wife. She even says, even during the passing of Nelson Mandela, she was one of the chief mourners there. So she says these are the reasons, this is a proof that she remained a customary woman of the family of Mandela's. But it's up to the judges that listened to these arguments to take a decision today.
Now, this is D-Day today. What time will that judgment be, Zimkhitha?
It's not clear at this stage what time the judgment will be handed down. However, as I'm saying, Elvis, we've been here since this morning. We don't want to miss anything because this would be a landmark case, as many women who have been divorced and in civil marriage will then have a case if then customary marriage will be taken into consideration. And then it will be also a responsibility of these courts to then outline what procedures need to be followed for customary marriage to then be dissolved, even after you have dissolved civil marriage. So this is a case not just being waited on by the Madikizela and the Mandela family and the executors, but all women, all married people want to see the decision that will be taken by these judges on whether it will turn around the issue of divorce that is already being recognized in the court of laws.
Mkita, you'll keep us updated on the proceedings there, and we'll come back to you as soon as that happens. That's our reporter there, Mkita Mkinana, joining us live from Mthatha. Now, this morning, we're asking you a very important question, and it relates to our theme that we're going to have in that discussion. A number of people that we've lined up for that particular discussion on the Rwanda genocide. And the question that we pose to you, what can South Africa learn from the Rwanda genocide? It's taking us back a number of years, and we're going to cross over to Evan to start that conversation.
Yeah, thank you very much, Elvis. 22 years ago today, the genocide in Rwanda was a failure of the international community to act, something current UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon acknowledged as a set of events that continues to shame the organization that he leads today. But since those fateful days leading up to the 100 days of slaughter, as it's become known, the UN has worked to reconfigure its ability to respond more quickly, including the creation of an office that specifically works to prevent genocide. Now, our United Nations correspondent in New York, Shaun Bryce-Pease, sat down with the Secretary General's Special Advisor on the Prevention of Genocide, who incidentally happened to be in Kigali just days before the slaughter of hundreds of thousands of Tutsi and moderate Hutus.
Why is it important that we remember what happened in Rwanda in 1994?
Is a way of life. I mean, what happened in Rwanda in 1994 was something we should never, never forget about. Within 100 days, between 800,000 people up to 1 million were killed simply because of who they are. They were targeted because they were Tutsis. And this is something we have to remember. And remembering the genocide of the Tutsis in Rwanda, during which Hutu, Modere, Twa, and others who opposed the genocide were also killed, is important because we have to realize that genocide doesn't happen overnight. Genocide is a process. It requires time. It requires resources. We all remember the Radio de Mille Collines, this hate radio, which in fact show that the words can be as worse than the bullets.
On record as saying you witnessed what happened in Rwanda in 1994. You left the country 2 days before the beginning of the genocide. Tell us about your personal story and what you did when you arrived at your next destination.
Kigali that week was something which was, I would say, very tense. That you cannot have genocide just like that. It is always preceded by a series of serious human rights violations. And one can see that impunity was prevailing in that country. And the result is, soon after I left on the 4th of April evening. What happened in 1994 in Rwanda? Those days, I visited Butare, I visited Gisenyi, Kigali. And when I addressed the UN Human Rights Commission, I did request that an investigation be started And at that time, I was Secretary General of the International Commission of Juries.
So that when you left Rwanda, that genocide was coming?
Not say that what I was seeing was really a genocide. I did not have the evidence that there was a plan, a specific plan targeting the Tutsis. But one can see that there were already some seeds which were being planted, particularly the hate speech. Because when human beings are named after animals' names, and we remember the Tutsis being named cockroaches, and this reminds us the Jews in Europe who were named after animals' names. So that means that is the beginning of the dehumanization. So we have learned those lessons. We have learned those lessons, and that is one of the reasons today my office is making every effort to strengthen the capacity of member states in preventing hate speech.
When we reflect on the Rwandan genocide and other events that happened around the same period, we think of Srebrenica in Bosnia in 1995. One of the common factors that emerges is a failure of the international community and a failure of the UN Security Council to act expeditiously. Do we now, today, act swiftly enough?
Till today, we need to do more. 1994, 1995, Srebrenica. But still today, we are seeing risk of genocide in some regions around the world. I remember in November 2013, when I addressed the Security Council sitting in an area formula. I came out of that meeting and I addressed the press, and I told them, what I'm seeing today in Bangui reminds me what I saw in Kigali before the genocide. Are you saying, Special Advisor, that the genocide is going to happen in CAR? I said I can certainly affirm that if the international community doesn't take action right now, I will not exclude a genocide in CAR. Because at that time, the Muslim Central African were being targeted. The Fulani people were being targeted. So I'm glad I did so. The story was carried out immediately in the New York Times the following day. And I remember the DSG, the Secretary General, said, Special Advisor, I said yes. But we have learned lesson. Go to South Sudan, where also I sounded the alarm when I saw the Nuer and the Dinka, a conflict which was a power struggle turning into an inter-ethnic conflict. I was worried. But then what happened? The special representative of the Secretary General, Hilde Johnson, opened the doors of the UN camp to allow people to come in to be protected. And this echo what happened in 1994, where the doors were closed. At that time, had the United Nations, the international community, provided troops in Rwanda, one could have protected the Tutsi population against those who perpetrated the genocide.
Ethnicity, identity, religion, these are often a tinderbox that require but a tiny flame to ignite a human tragedy. We see it in places like South Sudan. We've seen it in the Central African Republic, most recently in Burundi. Why is who we are and what we believe in often so divisive and destructive?
My first address before the UN Human Rights Council sitting in Geneva focused on the religious tensions around the world. And as a result, I decided also to launch an important project which brings religious leaders from all around the world and group faith to address their role in preventing incitement to violence that could lead to atrocity crimes, meaning genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and ethnic cleansing. Because religious leaders can have a positive, that is their role, but unfortunately also a negative role. And we need to make sure that they play that positive role to influence their followers.
Message to Rwandans today?
That is a message of peace, a message of love, a message of reconciliation. I think remembering today the genocide of the Tutsis in Rwanda, during which Hutu, moderate, Twa, and others were also killed, is an important momentum to mourn, but also to draw the lessons, to show that we are all Rwandan, one nation. And in the constitution of Rwanda today, there is no longer any reference to Hutu and Tutsis. But what is important is not only what is in the book, but what is in the mind of the people. We have to make sure that every Rwandan stand and recognize he or she is a Rwandan, and that they will have to join hands, work together, and to build together this beautiful country, which is Rwanda. I mean, when you see the economy of Rwanda today, you compare it with other countries within the continent, you can be proud of what they have achieved.
They're doing something right.
Absolutely. And the fight against corruption, because we have to remember one thing, and in fact, I'm doing some research on the issue of corruption and genocide, because at the end of the day, corruption is the cancer which really is affecting most of our countries around the world.
Adama Dieng, thank you very much indeed. What a pleasure. Thank you, sir.
That was Sherwin Bryce Pease doing a very interesting interview. Of course, we're focusing on Rwandan genocide 22 years on today. Our question of the day deals directly with it, but we're putting a twist on it. What can we learn as South Africa, as Africa, from what happened in Rwanda 22 years on? That's our question of the day. Please tell us, what do you think? The language of genocide, is it too much in the public domain here in South Africa? Name-calling, calling for war, revolution, and the like. What does that mean? Anyhow, in 1994, the world stood idly by as the Central African country of Rwanda was experiencing the mass slaughter of more than 800,000, mainly Tutsis and some moderate Hutus. In the events that took place after the genocide, many government officials in that country mourned the loss of many and were surprised about the world's obliviousness to the situation that could have largely been prevented from taking place in the first place. Now, the Rwandan genocide didn't really interest the outside world at the time, as the Yugoslavia genocide, for instance, did. But today, people around the world hold solemn commemorations to mark the 22nd anniversary of the genocide. Slightly more than 2 decades later, Rwandans navigate their way forward, and along with them, we commemorate this sad day in our modern history here in South Africa as well. Now, in studio, we are fortunate to be joined today by the Rwandan High Commissioner to South Africa, Mr. Vincent Karega. A very good morning to you, sir, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning.
What does this day mean for Rwandans around the world?
It is a very critical day when Rwandans think, why did we go that lower? And how can we today continue to ensure that we don't go back to similar situation, and that we take our country, our nation in our hands and propel it to better status, to more hopes for the people of Rwanda. So it's a day of reflection. It's not the time to build grudge, but to learn lessons and to move forward.
You talk about learning lessons around this. What's the language, and this is the question we're also asking our viewers today, what's the lesson a country like South Africa, for instance, who have its own unique political challenges and divisions, what's the lesson that we learn, or that we should learn, from what happened in Rwanda?
the Rwandan people historically were so united, shared common values, and were organized until they were colonized and divided to permit the colonial power to rule. And then followed independence, but with bad governance. So a lesson to the whole world is when the country is not governed properly, when the population of a country do not feel the state is fair and dealing with issues of all citizens equally, that's when grudges and conflict and tensions within communities or between leadership and people starts.
Yeah.
As far as South Africa is concerned, I have no lesson to give. South Africa is such an inspiration to the continent. It has got 100 years old ANC. They have the capacity to assess problems, the capacity to find solution. It's a complex economy. It is the most modern in the continent, but it's also a dual economy in which discrepancies and the gaps are so huge. So it's not a very easy case to manage. So it comes with challenges. The most important is that you have systems, you have constitution and institutions that can face challenges, but that are able at the same time to overcome the challenges before it is too late.
You've been in South Africa for many years. When you follow the media, when you read mainstream media, when you hear politicians using the language of genocide, calling people the names of insects and talking about revolution, a bloody revolution, and so forth, do you get concerned for what that could mean in a country like South Africa?
The genocide starts with language. But as far as I'm concerned and my experience here, those kind of words came out of anger through hot debates. They did not come as ideological. And in most cases, people have withdrawn them or apologized for them, which is a good thing. Because where genocide happens, people don't apologize. They enforce them and they continue to spread them. In your case, when those kind of words come out of anger, they are immediately withdrawn. But preventing having those kind of words that will hurt hearts and raise higher the tension is also something to prevent or something to build into the way of thinking. So racial words like calling people monkeys or calling others pigs, also
cockroaches,
lice, or
lice and the like, these kinds of words.
Words that group people around race or ethnic or political affiliation.
Religion.
Yeah, can really bring conflict, animosity that are necessary in a country that is building one nation.
I want to talk about the UN quickly. The late Boutros Ghali was the UN chief at the time of the chaos in Rwanda. What would you have liked him, as the leader of the UN at the time, to have done differently then to prevent the kind of pictures that we're seeing on screen now?
I think the whole world knows that under his leadership it was total failure. Rwanda genocide was on CNN. The whole world knew. The UN mission that was in Rwanda was reduced instead of being expanded. And the reports from the people on the ground showed clearly that they sensed genocide was getting planned and it was going to happen. And it happened following what they reported, but there was very little intervention. So that, we've never forgotten that in Rwanda. It shows this body, the UN, global body, only acts where probably the key decision makers in the body have got interests, like strategic resources and so on. Because it is also, we saw the difference when in Yugoslavia, almost the same thing wanted to happen.
Yeah.
The UN was so able to stop it, and the Yugoslavia government was much more armed than probably the Rwandan army of during genocide, whereby people were using machetes and other things. So that could be much easier for UN and probably African Union to stop. But it did not happen until almost 1 million people were killed.
We remember that day. We will remember that day in Africa forever, I would think. I thank you for joining us today, the Rwandan High Commissioner to South Africa, Mr. Vincent Karega. Thank you for joining us again.
Thank you.
Moving on, President Jacob Zuma has announced that the next local government elections here in South Africa will take place on the 3rd of August this year. Very significant. Lots of tweets, lots of comments. Everyone has an opinion. Alien Cyclist talks about, I expect a very, very low turnout as we have no local elections here. Tapelo says, morning Advocate Thuli Madonsela. Is it possible just to release findings on the municipality of Tshwane investigation just before the local elections, says Tapelo. Then Mehloti says, let's just say I now know who I am not going to vote for in the upcoming local elections, and I'm a first-time voter. Very interesting. OSFSA says, with local elections set for 3 August, watch this space for details of virtual civil society analysis room and others. Don't quite get it. Moving on. Time for us now to take a look at the front pages from around the globe. We'll start in the United States today. The USA Today reports that following the stepping aside of Iceland's Prime Minister Sigmundur Gunnlaugsson, Irish bookmaker Paddy Power on Wednesday began taking bets on who might be the next world leader to leave office as a result of leaks related to offshore accounts. Then, the Financial Times says the collapse of Pfizer's $160 billion merger with Allergan yesterday brought the total value of abandoned deals this year to its highest since the eve of the financial crisis. It also sent shockwaves through corporate America. Finally, across the pond in the UK, The Independent reports that David Cameron is facing further questions over his links to offshore investment funds after it emerged that his late father was involved in a second company based in a tax haven. Some of the top stories around the world today. Let's have a look now at what's happening in the courts here in South Africa. We start in Cape Town, where a man who's been on the run for more than 15 years on child sex charges in the United Kingdom is expected to appear in the Cape Town Magistrates Court. Then in the Eastern Cape, the Umtata High Court is expected to hand down judgment in the Winnie Madikizela Mandela case. Madikizela Mandela is seeking the rights to her ex-husband, of course, former President Nelson Mandela's estate in Kunu. We will give you a live update as soon as that announcement is made a little bit later this morning. Time now for us to take a break. When we come back, Elvis will continue the discussion around Rwandan genocide when he speaks to a victim, someone who's lost more than 50 family members in the genocide. Can you imagine that? Absolutely shocking. After the break.
Why are we paying for people's faults? And some years down the line, it catches up with you, then you didn't listen.
Well, it's a question of, to be fair.
They greet you in English, but the entire lecture is in Afrikaans. Are you saying, therefore, General, that the Hawks did not leak the letter?
I must just say so. Hawks did not leak this document.
Okay, but Gwedemantashe doesn't think so.
That one, Paul, you are drawing me now to the politics. Myself, I'm dealing with investigation. That one, politician will answer.
Watch Question Time with me, Mpho Tsedu, Monday to Thursday at 5:30 p.m. on the SABC News Channel.
Now, we continue our discussion today, and of course, we're asking you that question on the Rwandan genocide. What can we as a society here in South Africa learn from the Rwandan genocide? That's the question that we pose to you. You can let us know what's on your mind on the Facebook page as well as on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. Now, 1994, let's go back. Rwanda's population of 7 million people, composed of 3 ethnic groups: the Hutus, Tutsis, and the Twas, otherwise known as the Abattoir. On April the 6th of the same year, a plane carrying the country's Hutu president, Juvenal Habyarimana, was shot down, and violence began almost immediately after that. Exactly 22 years ago on this day, April the 7th, under the cover of war, Hutu extremists claimed their first genocide victims. In just one day only, 100 days, some 800,000 people were slaughtered in Rwanda. Entire families and communities were wiped out. At the time, 19-year-old Bonaventure Gageruka's branch of his family tree was literally hacked off with machetes. He lost 55 members of his immediate and his extended family to the 1994 mass slaughter targeting Tutsis and moderate Hutus. Bonaventure now joins us in studio to tell us more about his harrowing ordeal as we observe the anniversary of the Rwandan genocide. A very good morning to you, and this, to you, must be a harrowing day.
Good morning, viewers. Yes, it is. 1994, on this day, if I try to recall what happened, the Rwanda turned into hell in a fraction of a second. A friend was no longer a friend. The day you had been dreading for many years intruded. So the killing started the same night after the airplane was shot down, and people were attacked with machetes, grenades, guns. I can still remember the noise of the guns. I do not really have words to describe what happened.
Did you understand what was happening at the point in time and why it was happening?
Not really. You know, we felt like as a nation, as human beings, things won't happen at the same extent it did.
Now, your entire family was wiped out, or 55 members of your family at least. How many members are left? Or
yes,
were left?
I survived only with my sister. My father died afterwards. And let's say I lost over 55 people in my family. So as I'm talking to you, I don't have aunties, uncles, also including the generation. People I started with, most of them had been killed. Neighbors, of course, people from the Tutsi ethnic group.
How did you survive? How did you get out?
Well, it wasn't easy that time, even to survive. If they are talking about 1 million, for me to be alive today, to be here, it was a very, very tragic journey, which probably it can take some hours to explain. But basically, I was saved by someone who had a goodwill to do that kind of kindness and save my life.
And what happened? How did you get there now?
I managed to escape to our neighboring country, and then I came back to Rwanda.
Now, at the time, we were talking earlier about the language of genocide. At the time, what did you hear from your neighbors, from the people that's close to you and the people that started to come to your house and haunt people that were on the opposite side?
You see, Rwanda, it was a broken society because of the bad governance, the history of the country. As we know, the killing started a long time ago, even though we cannot call them genocides, but the massacres were taking place. So 1994, it was like the final solution. So we grew up, dehumanized. You can imagine yourself as a human being being called a cockroach, a snake. So from my childhood, I grew up as a cockroach, as a snake. So Rwanda wasn't, let's just call it, in my own words, it was evil country.
So family members turned against each other, neighbors turned against each other. Is that what you're trying to say?
Definitely. So let's say a human being again was questionable. There's no any reason to kill children, to kill elderlies, to kill 1 million of people.
Bonaventura, how has this loss and the survival affected your outlook on life, and what should we learn from your experience?
Yes, being a survivor, it's a different story because you have to adjust into a new life. The genocide we're talking about has left me and others, let's say, high and dry. So it's not easy to adjust into new life, but there are many challenges now because a lot has been done. As you know, Rwanda, and after 22 years, there is a hope. There are things, but there are, can mention like now genocide denial is growing, spreading as wildfire. I'm talking about perpetrators, people kill their families. If you know how many people live in South Africa, I'm talking here in South Africa, who have committed genocide, who have become now even South Africans. How do you feel yourself with that lack of justice for people who have committed this human atrocities in history to enjoy impunity they don't deserve?
There was a TRC process. Was that enough in terms of getting closure to your pain?
Yes, it was the Reconciliation Commission in Rwanda, but that is in Rwanda. It's not in South Africa. It's not in Mozambique. It's not in Zambia. It's not in France. That is what's happening. So all these people who had been involved directly or indirectly. I'm talking about Rwandans. I'm talking about foreigners, entities, countries. So in that particular point, I believe Rwandans should, and friends and the whole world again, unite and do something about it. Otherwise, it's going to undermine the reconciliation. The lessons we're talking about are not going to happen unless we are working on some platform.
Your sister, is she still with you, or is she back home?
Yes, she's in Kigali. She's got a family. She's enjoying her life.
Bonaventura, thank you so much, and all the best of luck.
It's my pleasure.
That was Bonaventura Kagaruka, a survivor of the 1994 Rwandan genocide. A terrible situation. The question that we pose to you is, what can we as a society here in South Africa learn from the Rwanda genocide? Let me know what's on your mind on the Facebook page and Twitter page. But right now it's over to take a look at all your comments that we have. Continuing with today's theme, of course, 22 years ago, over 1 million, including women and children, brutally massacred in just 100 days. Let's take a look at your comments on the Facebook page and Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. This one from Joel Kazangaza says, my thoughts and prayers to the families who lost their loved ones in the 1994 genocide, the Tutsi genocide in Rwanda. We'll never forget. Hashtag Kwibukwa. This one from Mari says, good morning, Rwanda. We are commemorating our lovely parents, our sisters, and our friends. Feel strong enough to fight the genocide ideology, says Mari. This one from Agida says, fighting genocide ideology, hashtag 22 years ago, 100 Turibuka, Kendi Tuzahora, Twibuka, Abaku Bazize, and 1994 Rwanda genocide. This one from Rwanda in India. The genocide in Rwanda was prepared through hate speech, discrimination, propaganda, and training killers. Interahamwe That was, of course, the troops or the army put together of youth killing the people. Samira says Genocide Memorial Day in Rwanda, as the country commemorates the million killed. Well, that's a million, between 800 and a million. It's also a time for healing. See Kwibu Kwa 22. Never again, says Samira Saulani. Those are some of the comments that we have on the Twitter handle. You can also let us know what's on your mind, the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. It's now time to take a look at your Facebook page, and let's see what's happening there. ANC veteran Mvuso Msimang has backed the initiative taken by the party's Sefako Makhato branch in Johannesburg, calling on the president, Jacob Zuma, to step down or face disciplinary action. Then, in a bid to show solidarity and promote free movement of Africans within their region and other parts of the continent, African heads of state now have to carry an African passport for the next African Union summit to be hosted in Kigali in Rwanda in July. And we're talking about Rwanda this morning, the genocide there. And in the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission will review the leaked Panama documents, or the Panama Papers, exposing holders of thousands of hidden bank accounts for possible violations of anti-bribery laws. Now, for more on this, you can go to our Facebook page, search for Newsroom, and you can find all the details that you're looking for there on the Facebook page. You have to stay tuned for more. After the break, Geben continued the discussion on the Rwandan genocide. Stay tuned.
In Africa, technology has created many new ways of doing things.
ICT is an increasingly important part of everybody's life.
It's being used in education, for social media, and now for farming too.
The best thing about internet for a farmer is that you get to share information.
On Network, we give you all the important African technology and social media news. That's Network with Ms. Phumelele Zondi every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time, only on SABC News.
Welcome back. Rising from broken infrastructure to one of Africa's fastest growing economies, Rwanda is proving to be one of the continent's success stories. Not so long ago, about 60% of Rwandans lived below the poverty line, lacking adequate food, education, medical services and access to safe drinking water, as the country had just emerged from war and genocide that devastated the health system there. Development indicators tell a story of significant changes in education, public health and the economy. Rwandans are living longer and are better off economically now than 20 years ago. Former US President Bill Clinton, former British Prime Minister Tony Blair, as well as the World Bank, have sung the country's praises. What is Rwanda's secret? Now, to discuss this, we are joined in studio by Dr. Peter Karungu, an economist, who will give us his insights. Very good morning to you, Doctor. Thank you for joining us.
Morning to you and morning to the listeners.
What is the secret, this magical turnaround we've seen in Rwanda? If there's one thing that stands out for you, what would that be?
I think in every situation, out of a disaster can come a lot of positive things. It's unfortunate it happens. You look at the Second World War in Germany and Japan, they were annihilated to lose the war, but they became the mightiest economies over time. But key to this is one thing. A is something called commitment to hard work, commitment to loyalty of the state, and commitment to what we call zero tolerance to corruption. Much as corruption is seen as an inevitable in most situations, the management of it thereof is what, in my view, has brought the country. So I say three things: loyalty, commitment to hard work, and also leadership that is intolerance to corruption.
Agriculture has or still is a significant contributor to Rwanda's GDP. What kind of produce does Rwanda then bring to Africa and to the world today?
I think two things. One is how you manage what we call subsistence into moving into quote-unquote highly developed and high technical driven economy. If you look at it, this country has had in the last 6 years a compounded growth rate of close to 7%, called it 6.8. I always say to people, the number is simple. If you take the GDP to be 10 billion and you grow at 7%, what happened? You take a number 70 divided by the growth rate. So it's 70 divided by 7 give you 10 years. Yeah. Every 10 years, the GDP doubles. So we are seeing a miracle in making because that's the trajectory. The second thing is to understand the following. Out of everything else is a commitment to what we call education. Yeah. It doesn't matter what level of education you call, but everything is relative. If you create awareness of people understanding simple mathematics, simple business relationship, simple business accounting firm, simple commitment to what we call profit and loss analysis, you're going to get the country wake up.
We're, of course, dealing with the genocide today, and you're coming to talk about the economic aspects of it, but I want to talk about the wider lessons that we as South Africa can learn about what happened in Rwanda 22 years ago now, not just South Africa, other African countries, from an economic reconstruction and development perspective, but also what are the lessons that we can learn, that we can apply to our public discourse, if we can call it that, in South Africa?
That question is not appropriate for today, but let me try. First and foremost, like I said, in every situation of the magnanimity of disaster like what we saw, when people wake up to reality, they work together as jointly. Here, what we need to understand is that you cannot allow corruption. I keep on saying this anywhere I go. Corruption is the greatest threat to mankind. Because it defies all economic logic, it defies all the principles of economic efficiency. And once you tolerate it or become intolerant, one of the two, the moment you don't tolerate it, then you're going to see a lot of changes among the people. If you look at it, the second aspect is to question two things. And I'm not a politician, I'm an economist. There is something we call political freedom, and there is something we call economic freedom. And we tend to understand the two are different. When economic freedom is primarily saying, access the rate to which I pay you, access the rate you register companies, access the rate people are paid well, allow people to remember it's not the machine that works, it's the human being that drives the machine. Pay them well. All these things combined will take us very far. And that's what I saw when I got to Rwanda. Finally, if you recall, that is the only country we know that nobody can drop a piece of paper on the side of the road. Because why would you drop it? Who do you expect to pick it? If the head of state is the one picking once a month, if I recall when I went to Rwanda. So these are simple things, but they magnify in what we call output.
What should we be thinking about in Africa today when we look back at this dark spot in our history?
First, nowhere should any child die for political differences. One child dead is one too many. That's number one. In other words, we should guide against that. So what do? We need to bring together humanity to understand that in unison, in union, in discussing, in consulting, in agreeing and disagreeing, which we have, there is always one noble task to protect human life. That's a political discourse for me, but I want to move that way. But remember, the reason why most of these things happen is the level of inequality. It's where humanity gives very little respect for others. And you assume my designer suit, your designer suit makes you better, and you forgot. Listen to this. Africa needs to know the tenure of this country's wealth, wherever you go, is tied to how many people are uplifted from poverty. It doesn't matter whether you are a billionaire. If you don't let others access the wealth that we have today, and you assume it's the privilege of a few, then we are calling in economics zero-sum game.
That is Rather sobering thought today, Dr. Karunga. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. I think we're going to have to talk about this specifically again in the future. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you very much for being us. That's Dr. Peter Karunga is an economist. Of course, today we're dealing with Rwandan genocide 22 years ago. We've asked you the question. The question, of course, you're still on the screen there, Doctor. What can South Africa learn from the Rwandan genocide that happened 22 years ago today? That's the question. I'll have some of your responses up in the next hour. Now we're going to go for an update, weather update, that is, with Tsietse Monare.
For victory requires intense effort and teamwork. When you get to it, there is no turning back, because all eyes are on you. When it's action time, nothing should stand in your way. Sports Live tackles and analyzes all the sport action. This is the home of all your sport news, updates, and more. Sports Live weekdays at 8:30 p.m.
Trends follows fashion designers, cultural and lifestyle issues when and as they happen.
I'm always excited to see what the new fresh talent is bringing along. I'm always excited to see the direction that the designers are going in.
We celebrate the brilliant works of playwright in Mpumalanga.
When everybody else talk about their own challenges, some talk about maybe the whaling that happens around Japan and other areas, I can be able to say, look, we have been confronted with the problem whereby our rhino population is going down.
We never miss previews of movies locally and abroad just to keep you informed.
So I'm a partner.
Welcome to the big boys.
Join Refulo Mula for that 1 hour weekly dose of arts and entertainment news every Friday at 9 p.m. on Trends.
Tonight in an SABC exclusive news expose, we show you how firearm proficiency certificates are fraudulently sold for a few thousand rand.
What you did was illegal. Do you at least acknowledge that? What you did is illegal.
I say it could be probably illegal.
Nigeria is Africa's second largest tomato producer.
The chief executive of Enrisco says he started the company with a capital of $75 million.
The problem now is that the market has been created in China.
He says that doing business in the country is becoming more difficult every day.
In Bupilong, we celebrate those who take strides doing good and changing the world.
I really think that education has to be revisited, and it's an integral part of teaching young people skills of the future.
There's always light at the end of the tunnel.
I think that the treatment should be made available, actually, because it's costly. Growth hormones are very costly.
Where there is a challenge, we bring hope.
I'm alive. And the brain tumor is gone.
Join your host, Buleng Mulabati, every Friday at 17:30 for more uplifting stories.
News Today takes an in-depth look on news locally, continentally, and globally. We bring the world to your home. We cover all economy news extensively to keep you informed. We are live to break news as and when they happen across the world. We analyze news using experts in all aspects. Make a date with News Today every Monday to Friday from 3 to 5:30 p.m.
It's Thursday, the 7th of April, 2016. This is Newsroom, Jumbo Africa, and a very warm welcome to SABC News Channel 404 here on our channel. We broadcast live from Auckland Park here in Johannesburg to the rest of the African continent. I'm Elvis Preston. I'll be with you until 12 o'clock. As you know, we're also streaming live on YouTube, with the entire show now available on our YouTube channel. The question that we pose to you is looking at Rwanda and the lessons that we can learn from there. You can tell us what's on your mind on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, as well as on the Facebook page. But first, let's take a look at your news headlines. Wednesday, August the 3rd, has been set aside for the 2016 municipal elections. The Mthatha High Court in the Eastern Cape will today deliver judgment in the case involving Winnie Madikizela Mandela and the late Nelson Mandela's executors. And the ANC's new parliamentary chief whip, Jackson Mthembu, has questioned the legal advice that the party and parliament were given on the Nkandla matter. Now, those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall what's happening on the sports front. A very good morning to you, Kendall.
Elvis, a hearty good morning to you, and a very good morning to everybody at home as well. We've got quite a lot on the sporting front, and this is what we've got for you today.
How about this? Yes!
Gary Player, at the age of 80, sinks a hole-in-one at the 115-yard 7th hole in the par 3 contest on the eve of the 2016 Masters. And Real Madrid suffer a shock first-leg defeat to UEFA Champions League quarter-final debutants, Wolfsburg.
Defending Paul, oh, it's two! This is sensational! Wolfsburg 2, Real Madrid 0.
All this as Swiss police raid UEFA headquarters, looking for a contract reportedly signed by former UEFA official Gianni Infantino. That's what we've got for you in the sports in about 20 minutes or so. Be sure to stay around for that. Back to you, Elvis.
Thank you, Kendall. He will be back a little bit later as promised, but now let's take a look at your top story this morning. Wednesday, August the 3rd. That date has been set aside for the 2016 municipal elections. The announcement was made by President Jacob Zuma yesterday. The IEC has its work cut out for it. Now that the election date has been proclaimed, the election machinery must kick in. Meanwhile, the IEC says it's ready for voter registration this coming weekend. It hopes that more youth will register to vote. Registration stations will be open from 8 until 5 p.m. Saturday and Sunday on both days. Well, tomorrow we'll have a discussion on the IEC and some of the parties involved, as well as some of the decisions taken by the court. So we'll look at that tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. You don't want to miss it. Stay tuned to your favorite channel here on Newsroom. Now, the ANC's new parliamentary chief whip, Jackson Mthembu, has questioned the legal advice that the party and parliament were given on the Nkandla matter. Mthembu apologized for the resolution that the ANC majority in parliament took on the Nkandla reports. But the party stands by its decision to not remove the president from office. The DA will meanwhile start parliamentary disciplinary processes today against ANC MPs. The opposition party says the ANC caucus in parliament must be held accountable.
Facing the media, the new chief whip wouldn't budge on the party's vote to back the president. But he had questions on how they managed to get to this point.
We are sorry. Because we gave an impression that indeed what we did was correct. But as we all know, the court has set aside that resolution of Parliament. But did we need a court to set aside? Should we on our own not have been aware?
He was referring to the ANC resolution that the president was not liable to repay anything on the upgrades at his home. Mthembu says they will be meeting with Speaker Baleka Mbete to discuss the legal advice Parliament is getting. Mthembu and his deputy Doris Lakude, however, insists that Zuma never refused to pay back the money. But the ANC caucus agree that the Constitutional Court judgment should be followed by both the President and Parliament. Abra Babia, SABC News, Parliament.
Home Affairs Minister Malusi Gigaba says the new process of applying for IDs and passports online will be secure. Today, the department will introduce its e-channel pilot project at Gallagher Estate, north of Johannesburg. The project aims to lessen the burden on Home Affairs officers. Speaking earlier on Morning Live, Gigaba discussed the launch.
We're working towards ensuring that we roll this application also to our Home Affairs offices. Because what we're trying to do is to make it convenient for people to apply for their documents. Technology is now an enabler and it can be secure. We can find secure applications that enable people to apply for their documents without having to go to Home Affairs. So we're trying to introduce innovation at Home Affairs that's going to make it very, very convenient for people to apply for their documents without having to experience the inconvenience of standing in long queues. When we launch this project, we're going to start with the 30 to 35-year-olds. We're targeting young people. This is the 40th anniversary of the June 16th uprising. We want to pay homage to these young people who paid with their dear lives to bring South Africa to where it is. So we're starting with that group because when we looked at the National Population Register, we found out that this is a group of about 4 million people that's manageable, that can be able that we can use as a pilot.
A story of the launch of the e-pilot or e-channel pilot project today at Gallagher Estate. We are joined live by our journalist Aldrin Sampier in Midrand. Aldrin, a very good morning. It sounds very vibey there where you are. Paint us a picture as to what is happening currently.
Well, yes, good morning, Elvis. Well, quite a level of excitement considering this, the pilot project that Home Affairs is launching. And most definitely, if you just listen back to that interview that Minister Malusi Gigaba had on Morning Live, and speaking about the level of innovation that such an initiative has, you really get the sense of excitement that some of those who are attending this event have. And then a bit later on, we'll have a demonstration of exactly how the system will be operating. We have different different banks that are here. We know that ABSA, Standard Bank, FNB are part of this initiative, which is launched by Home Affairs. So it's quite a level of excitement here. I have to say, me myself, I'm also excited because I've just lost my ID, and now I have every reason to walk into my bank and make an application for this new ID.
Now, tell us a little bit about the e-project, what you know, and how it is going to benefit the country as a whole.
Well, so basically how the e-project will be working, or this pilot project will be working, is that now you'd be able to sit at the comfort of your home, or whether it be at the office, go online onto the Home Affairs website. You'll get the 4 banks that are part of this initiative. Click on the bank which you bank with, and then you'll have a form that you need to fill in. You then fill in that form, whether it be for passport or ID, and in that form you can also make an appointment with the bank of your choice, or the bank that you bank with, and set an appointment as to when will you be walking through the branch of any bank for them to take your fingerprints as well as a picture for your ID and passport. And after that, a few days after that, then you'll be able to go and collect your ID book or passport. I was speaking to the Director General of Home Affairs earlier on, Kuseli Apleni, and he was saying that the initiative right now with the pilot project, they're just looking at the IDs as well as the passports, but later on they hope to also roll out other services that are offered at Home Affairs, which include, of course, visas as well as birth certificates. Not yet. We don't know what will happen with the death certificates and how they will work around that. And another issue, of course, is the issue around the security. And it says that the system, they've been testing this system since last year, and they're quite happy with the security that they've put in place.
Now, some would say that this system is long overdue. Did you maybe find out from him why it took so long to implement?
Well, we didn't speak about why it has taken so long to introduce this new system. But the level of excitement that you get from them is that right now it is happening. It's in 2016, and I remember it was back in 2015 when the Minister of Home Affairs, Malusi Gigaba, first announced this initiative, and now it has come to fruition and it will be happening. So from today on going forward, you and I can walk into a bank and make an application for for an ID or passport. The pilot project is only being launched at 11 branches of the 4 different banks, and Mpuseli Apleni, the Director General, indicating that after they've seen the successfulness of this initiative, it will then be drawn out countrywide. So each and every bank across the country will have the services by Home Affairs.
Now, the Minister of Home Affairs, Malusi Gigaba, we understand will be launching the project, but who else will be there to launch it, and what time is it supposed to kick off?
Well, we expect the President, actually, he will be delivering the keynote address. He's expected to arrive any moment from now. We also have members from the executives from all the different banks, as well as corporate sector, who are part of this initiative, and of course officials from Home Affairs who will be demonstrating exactly how this new system will be operating.
Aldrin Sampier keeping us updated on the latest there from Midrand. Thank you so much for your time. That's our reporter Aldrin Sampier there. Moving on to other news now. The Mthatha High Court in the Eastern Cape will today deliver judgment in the case involving Winnie Madikizela Mandela and the late Nelson Mandela's executors. Last month, a full bench of judges heard her application seeking to be given the rights to the former President Nelson Mandela's house in Qunu outside Mthatha. Madikizela Mandela's lawyers argued that in terms of the customary marriage, she is the rightful owner of the house in Qunu, but Nelson Mandela's executors opposed the application, arguing that civil marriage supersedes the customary one. Early on, we spoke to Zimkita Manqinana from the Mthatha High Court.
A lot of people are expected to converge to this High Court this morning to hear the judgment based on the arguments that were made by both counsel last month in front of a full bench of judges onto whether Winnie Madikizela Mandela is the rightful owner of the home, or whether the executors, as stated in the will of former President Nelson Mandela, are the rightful owners to administer and continue living in that homestead at Qunu. However, that decision will be based on the judgment that will be made inside this court this afternoon. We have seen already local and national journalists making way into this High Court to wait that decision so that they can take it through the country, because this is a high-profile case as it involves the first democratic president of South Africa, and also that this is a will that is being disputed here. So everyone is waiting eagerly on whether the decision will be to grant Winnie Madikizela Mandela, or the executors of the estate will remain the rightful owners of the home.
Alliance partners have agreed to remain united amidst the challenges currently facing the party. Now, this emerged during the first day of the party's Provincial Alliance Summit that is underway in Kimberley.
Leaders say current challenges facing the party can only be overcome if they act collectively. They called on the party faithful not to be swayed by calls for support.
You never take the president of the organization, you put him up there for targeting and say, I will defend you there. You make your leader of the organization, any leader, to take refuge in the organization. As you defend the organization, you defend its leadership.
The party says they are now on a mission to humbly engage with the people to clarify their stance about such issues.
With the situation existing out there that has been fully and ably described by comrades who have spoken before me, how do we go and talk to our people and make sure that they understand us, they continue to love us, and that they continue to give us their support?
Issues such as social and economic transformation, amongst others, are expected to be tackled. Puleng Mdupe, SABC News, Kimberley.
4,000 pick-it-up workers have been found guilty of participating in an unprotected work stoppage. Now, they went through disciplinary hearings last week. The city of Johannesburg is now waiting for recommendations on the sanctions against the employees. Pick-it-up workers is meanwhile into its 5th week. On Monday, the city of Johannesburg and Kusatu held talks with the union SAMWU. A deal has been presented to the workers in a bid to break the deadlock. According to the city, the negotiations are about salary disparities. The city says it cannot afford the 10,000 rand wage demands. SAMWU would not be drawn on the talks. The union says it will comment after consulting its members.
We were hoping, if all goes well, that we should see an end to the strike on Friday. If all goes well. So all of us are crossing our fingers because we are alive to the challenges that we're facing.
It is a situation. It is a situation where you are dealing with intimidation. You are dealing with sometimes workers that feel threatened, that sometimes after being intimidated do not go back, and your entire operation is affected by people feeling intimidated.
The World Health Organization says the number of adults with diabetes has now quadrupled to 422 million worldwide. Now, this is 4 times more than the previous number of 108 million from the 1980s. Type 2 diabetes is a chronic disease characterized by insulin resistance. Aging populations and rising levels of obesity worldwide suggest that the condition has become a defining issue for global public health. Researchers have found that diabetes has become more common in men than women. In addition, the number has increased significantly in developing countries such as China, India, Pakistan, and Egypt. The World Health Organization says global leaders have committed to halt the rise of the condition. The organizers behind Africa's biggest film festival, FESPACO, recently held the 4th edition of the JCFA, or the Festival of African Women in Film. The event aims to celebrate and highlight films made by women. The JCFA is part of an initiative by FESPACO, which is held biannually in Burkina Faso to examine and promote African female filmmakers and their contribution to cinema.
The event brought together female writers, directors, producers, film technicians and directors from all over Africa. It showcased over 37 films from 20 countries. There have often been few films and documentary entries by women filmmakers at past FESPACO editions.
Filmmaking is about teamwork, and everyone brings their own contribution, and in our own countries, actors and actresses need to bring a lot to film. Generally, we don't have acting schools, so events such as these are an opportunity and will encourage women who continuously fight to get their films made, as well as actresses.
Zongrana, a veteran in the industry with a dozen movies under her belt, presented her latest project called Someone at the Door. The movie examines pertinent social issues with Burkina Faso society, especially the growing gap between the rich and the poor. Despite challenges with access to funding, Zongrana hopes more women will be given a platform to tell their own stories in a manner that honors them.
My wish is for FESPACO and these events focusing on African female filmmakers to continue to flourish, and I hope that more women will participate, whether they are filmmakers, technicians, actresses, and all those who work behind the scenes on movies.
Filmmakers who participated in the festival say JCFA was a win for African film as a whole.
Everyone was warm. We also participated in master classes, panels, and had extremely rewarding exchanges. We really got the opportunity to share our experiences.
The 4-day event also offered film screenings, lectures, and workshops for everyone, from producers and directors to actors and film lovers. FESPACO is due to hold its 25th edition in 2017.
Pakistani man threatened to hang himself on the Greek island of Lesbos on Wednesday. Scores of people locked up in a detention center continued protesting their deportation to Turkey. The young man held at the overcrowded Moria registration center climbed a utility pole and forced himself into a makeshift noose made of a scarf.
Desperation is kicking in 2 days into an EU deal that sends migrants in Greece illegally back to Turkey, where they transited from. "I'm not an animal," this Pakistani shouts. "I am human." More than 200 migrants, most of them Pakistanis, have already been sent back since Monday, and the man is worried he could be next. Tensions have been high all week at the holding center, where the European Asylum Office is trying to find some 800 experts and translators to process the 2,800 asylum applications it expects out of just this one facility. On Greece's border with Macedonia, the story is different for the stranded migrants at the makeshift camp in Idomeni. They're not part of the EU deal. Instead, the government is telling them they can apply for a European relocation program, but only if they move to an official reception center for processing. Few take the offer, says this Iraqi man.
Right now, a lot of families are forced to consider smuggling routes. Most of the families are considering this option. There are families we know have disappeared. We don't know anything about them.
Human rights groups challenge the legality of the EU deal. They say it tramples over the rights of people displaced by war, and they question whether Turkey itself even has the means to handle the reverse influx of refugees.
The prosecutor at the International Criminal Court, the ICC, has refrained from announcing that they will appeal the decision to dismiss the case against Kenyan Deputy President William Ruto. The case was thrown out on Tuesday for lack of evidence.
Is back. Kenyan Deputy President William Ruto is celebrating seeing the 3 counts of crimes against humanity against him dismissed. But while it's a relief for him, for the Office of the Prosecutor of the International Criminal Court, it will be seen as a major loss. Judges at the ICC deemed there was not enough evidence for the trial against William Ruto and his co-defendant Joshua Sang to continue. But in their statements, the judges remarked on the 17 witnesses who withdrew their testimony in this case. The prosecutor accuses the Kenyan government of non-cooperation. Charges have been levelled against 3 Kenyans relating to witness tampering. But some observers say the dismissal of this case means the prosecutor should rethink how they process investigations.
The ICC is going to confront many of the same challenges that conspire against impunity in national courts.
For the 1,200 victims who were killed in the violence post the 2007 Kenyan elections, in which William Ruto was accused to be implicated, their best hope now for justice will be if the Kenyan government itself decides to investigate the violence.
Jack Parrick, SABC News, Brussels.
Panama is creating an international panel to help improve transparency in its offshore financial industry. The move follows the leak of millions of documents from the law firm Mossack Fonseca, showing it helps some clients evade tax and avoid sanctions. Several countries are probing possible financial crimes by the rich and the powerful. The Panama Papers allege that Zimplats, Fidentia's convicted accountant Graham Maddock, and President Jacob Zuma's nephew Kulabuse Zuma created illegal offshore accounts. President Juan Carlos Varela says that Panama will work with other countries over the revelations. Governments across the world have begun investigating possible financial wrongdoing by the rich and the powerful after the leak. Well, that's your news for now. We'll take a short break, and Kendo Makamate will be back with your sports news after that.
Welcome back, and my name is Kendall Makamat. I've got your sports on Newsroom. Our top story for this hour is about legendary South African golfer Gary Player, who provided one of the highlights of the annual Par 3 contest ahead of the 2016 Masters tournament in Augusta, Georgia. Player shot his 31st career hole-in-one at the event, which was won by American Jimmy Walker.
Some creativity, some imagination.
Fun was par for the course as professionals, former winners and legends got together at Augusta. There were laughs aplenty as young and old vied for victory.
Got it!
Often with the assistance of their little ones, lending a helping hand to caddy for daddy, even if it wasn't always their favorite thing to do. A record 9 holes in one were made at this year's event, almost double the 5 that was recorded in 2015.
And just misses that yellow ball. And look at that, Andy Sullivan with a hole-in-one at the 5th.
But it was Player's ace on the 7th hole that stole the show. His 4th hole-in-one at the event earned him a huge cheer from the crowd and handshakes from his legendary playing partners Jack Nicklaus and Tom Watson. Yet another record for Player, as no one has ever managed more than 3 aces in the history of the Par 3 tournament. At 80, he's also the oldest to achieve this feat.
Well, I played with Jack last year and he did it, so he said it's your turn this year.
The day, however, belonged to Walker. He shot a hole-in-one in his course record 8 under par 19 and finished 3 shots clear of his compatriots Craig Stadler and Keegan Bradley. The bad news for Walker, however, is that no Par 3 contest winner has ever claimed the coveted Masters title in the same year.
6 under back there at the 6th, and Walker with the one-shot advantage over Keegan Bradley.
A trend he would like to buck at the historic course this weekend. Liesel Zankel, SABC News.
Now to football news, where City earned a vital 2-2 draw in Paris against French giants PSG, and Real Madrid suffered their first defeat in the Champions League this season, crashing to a 2-0 defeat at Wolfsburg in their quarter-final first-leg match last night. Now, the Germans celebrated a memorable last 8 debut, starting with Ricardo Rodriguez's penalty in the 18th minute.
Rodriguez from the spot. That's the first goal that Navas has ever conceded in Champions League football.
Then Maximilian Arnold's strike in the 25th stunned the visitors.
Madrid defending poorly. Oh, it's 2! This is sensational! Wolfsburg 2, Real Madrid 0. To the tempo they like to.
Manchester City claimed a vital edge in their Champions League quarter-final tie against Paris Saint-Germain after grabbing 2 away goals in a 2-2 first-leg draw. Kevin De Bruyne opened the scoring in the 38th minute.
For De Bruyne, he's in for City here. Kevin De Bruyne.
And then Zlatan Ibrahimovic capitalized on a City blunder to level, having earlier missed a penalty. The home side then took the lead through Adrian Rabiot just before the hour mark.
Again the outswinger, Cavani, and it's 2-1. Rabiot knocks it in from close range. Possibly.
Fernandinho made it 2-2 after benefiting from a PSG mistake.
Fernandinho was in on the act.
City will host PSG at the Etihad Stadium next Tuesday in the return leg. Now, Swiss police have raided the headquarters of the European soccer body UEFA as they gather information about a contract reportedly signed by former UEFA official Gianni Infantino, now the head of the global soccer body FIFA. Europe's football governing body confirmed that the Swiss Federal Police requested a contract between UEFA and Cross Trading, a company implicated in the leaked Panama Papers. Infantino is alleged to have signed off on a contract with 2 Argentine businessmen who owned Cross Trading and were later indicted in the United States. Infantino said on Tuesday that he was dismayed that his integrity was being doubted in media reports about the contract. The impact of the leaked documents from the Panamanian law firm is snowballing. Banned UEFA President Michel Platini's Panamanian bank account is also named in the papers. This while FIFA's ethics committee said Juan Pedro Damiani, a member of his judgment chamber who had been placed under a preliminary investigation, has resigned. Clearly not just your average politician implicated in the Panama Papers, even such luminaries like Michel Platini and Gianni Infantino. Now, bringing the footballing stories home, Mamelodi Sundowns coach Pitso Mosimane is set to become the PSL Coach of the Year. That's if his side goes on to win the coveted 2015-2016 Absa Premiership title. Mosimane has been named Coach of the Month for the months of January and February.
He has been collecting PSL awards as if they are going out of fashion. Sundowns were also named second and third Q Innovation.
We spoke about consistency, we spoke about sacrifice, that at this point in time, the team comes first more than any individual, no coach, no player, nobody comes first, the team comes first.
However, Bidvest Vets could spoil the party for Sundowns as they are breathing heavily down their necks. A possible treble is beckoning as the team is also in contention for the Nedbank Cup. And the Chlorkop side is the only team that's flying the South African flag in the CAF Champions League. They play AS Vita in the Champions League this weekend.
Vita is a different team. Very good coach who's doing the double. He's doing the national team and he's also doing the Vita club. The coach goes to Lubumbashi against Mazembe. He goes there and they win.
There have been matches that have humbled and kept Sundowns grounded, such as the 5-0 and 3-1 losses to Bloemfontein Celtic. And the 1-0 defeat at the hands of Golden Arrows has made the title race a little more interesting. Themba Shiba, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Now, the Stormers camp has been rocked by long-term injuries to important players, but coach Robbie Fleck is excited about the opportunities it will afford to young talent in the province. The good news is that Damien Dayende and Reynard Elstad are set to make their first appearances for the Stormers this season when they play the Sunwolves at Newlands tomorrow. The Cape franchise have won 4 out of 5 matches so far, but they're definitely not taking anything for granted.
The Sunwolves are a good side. I think they've been pretty unfortunate in terms of some of their losses, and I felt that they've run most teams close, barring the Rebels. So they test you in a different way. They play with a high tempo, and they like to keep ball in hand. So our test, will be around defence this weekend.
Blitzbok stalwart Philip Snyman will reach a milestone in his 7th career this weekend when he makes his 35th tournament appearance for the Blitzbokker at the Hong Kong Sevens. Snyman will become only the 9th player to play in 35 tournaments for the Blitzbokker and will be added to the team's Roll of Honor. Snyman is one of 6 current players still involved with the Blitzbokker to be included in this Roll of Honor.
The 29-year-old Snyman made his debut for the Blitzbokker way back in 2009 and would have reached this milestone a long time ago had it not been for injuries and an extended stint in 15s which saw him play Super and Currie Cup rugby for the Free State Cheetahs. He rejoined the Blitzbokker as a full-time player in 2012 and since then has become one of the senior players in the side. He also captained the team in Wellington and Sydney this year.
Obviously, Hong Kong is always a special tournament, but like you said, the likes of Cape Town, Dubai, you can't really pick on one tournament that's a special tournament, but making this my 35th tournament, it will be a special tournament and one that I will cherish for the rest of my career, so hopefully we can deliver over the weekend.
While the Hong Kong tournament is a rich tradition and history, it no longer enjoys the sole status as an iconic event with the introduction of other world cities like Cape Town, Vancouver and Paris as destination on the circuit. It also no longer offers double points and prize money as it did in the past. While the Blitzbokker have never won here, the expectation to do so are no longer that intense as it had been in the past.
Yes, definitely. This is the 4th leg of the series, and Hong Kong is the first tournament of the 4th leg. And no exception or anything, Hong Kong is another tournament, and we're only looking to that first game against England. So, yeah, first game, and then hopefully we can build a good foundation there and just keep on building towards the end of the tournament.
The Blitzbokker kick off their Hong Kong campaign against England on Friday evening.
No, I'll tell you, I certainly hope that they actually do win the Hong Kong Sevens for the first time. Now, it was smooth sailing for most of the top seeds on day 2 of the Super Series South African Open. South African hope Kgothatso, KG Montjane and Lucas Sithole put on impressive performances on their way to victories in their respective matches.
Khutatso Montana started with a clean slate after an early exit at the Gauteng Open. She comfortably won a second-round clash against Francisca Madones from Chile, 6-love, 6-1. But the world number 8 will now face a formidable opponent in her next match when she takes on Jiske Griffon from Netherlands on Thursday.
Next round is going to be tough, playing the top seed, so it's not going to be an easy one. But other than that, I mean, I'm ready for the challenge. I'm ready for whatever comes my way. For me, like I said before, at this moment in time, I'm working on my game, so I'm going out there, give it the best I could. And yeah, the results will take care of themselves. I don't want to be putting pressure on myself, say I'm going to, do this, do that. But I'm just going on court, keep on working on my game, and yeah, surely the results will pay off.
Griffon, who was a losing finalist in the Gauteng Open, easily beat Macarena Cabrera from Chile 6-2, 6-love to keep a title defense on track. Meanwhile, world number 3 Lucas Sithole made a solid start to his title defense at the SA Open with a composed victory in the quad singles opener against Australian Heath Davidson. Sithole dispatched his Australian doubles partner in 57 minutes to win in straight sets, 6-love, 6-2.
I just stick to my game, as my coach told me this morning, and it all worked. I was hitting those targets, trying to move him. And at the end of the match, I won the last point of the match, which was good.
Sithole enjoyed the workout against Davidson.
A lot of the guys in the top 10, now they started to move quite well on the court. They started to cover a lot of corners, so you just need to be patient. So it was good for me to play this guy in a tournament.
His quarterfinal clash will be against number 7 Jamie Birdkin, who sent unseeded Takiro Koga from Japan packing with a 6-2, 6-love victory.
You remember that we did have Lucas Sithole right here in studio with us prior to the start of the SA Open, and it's good to see that he's doing well. Now, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, Elvis President is standing by with more news, more analysis. You're watching Newsroom. Do not go anywhere.
In Africa, technology has created many new ways of doing things.
ICT is an increasingly important part of everybody's life.
It's being used in education, for social media, and now for farming too.
The best thing about internet for a farmer is that you get to share information.
On Network, we give you all the important African technology and social media news. That's Network with me, Spumelele Zondi, every Sunday at 7:30 p.m. Central African Time, only on SABC News.
Now, today we focus on Rwanda and the genocide that happened there. And as you know, we're also asking you a very important question. What do you think we as South Africans can learn from the Rwanda genocide? I'd like to get your thoughts on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, and you can also like us on the Facebook page. By the way, if you like us there, you become part and parcel of the growing family. And then you can put your comments on the Facebook page. So we continue today's discussion on Rwanda genocide, which is commemorated today 22 years ago. Now, from April to July 1994, 800,000 people were violently killed in clashes between the Hutu and the Tutsis. South African author Zinhle Dlamini wrote the book Before Her Innocence Was Removed, Life After the Rwandan Genocide. Now, her book tells the story of the 21-year-old Solomon Surwumwe, hope I got that right, who sought refuge at the Akagera National Park, a game reserve with wild animals roaming freely, in order to escape and survive the atrocities of the time in Rwanda. Joining us now in studio is the author of the book, Zinhle Dlamini, and also on Skype from Mozambique, we have a survivor, Solomon, joining us as well. But first and foremost, a very good morning to you, Zinhle.
Good morning, Elvis.
First, tell me, why did you start, as a South African, why did you write this particular book on Rwanda?
It was really out of curiosity. You know, we kept hearing that 800,000 people died, and several others were displaced. But who are they? Who are these people who've been displaced? How did the genocide affect them? So the book was basically to put a face to the genocide. Instead of just having this umbrella word, a genocide happened in 1994. But under that word, there are human beings. How did they survive? How did life become after that? Did they find healing? Where are they now? What are they doing?
Number of questions there, and that obviously led to your research.
Yes.
So during your research, in compiling the details, conducting the research, your experience during that period, did you go to Rwanda as well?
No, I didn't go to Rwanda, and I regret that deeply because I depended on Solomon, the guy that is the main character in the book. You know, he talks about the place where he grew up in Kayove, and he describes the scenery. And I can only take his word for it, but had I been there, maybe that would have helped me in a way to enrich some of the content that I have here. So what is basically here is stuff that I got from him. And had I gone to Rwanda, I believe that there would have been a lot more color in the book.
How did you find Solomon?
I met Solomon through a mutual friend. Solomon was a pastor at the Presbyterian Church in Uville, and there was a guy that I knew who used to go to Solomon's church. So I told him that I wanted to write a book, and I wanted to feature somebody from Rwanda, and then he referred me to Solomon. So that's
I'm going to come back to the title of the book in that for, but let's greet Solomon. Solomon, once again, a very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning everyone, good morning the listeners.
Well, Solomon, there we go. Now I can see you. We could only hear you before. Now, the book is all about you. Tell us your story, and how do you feel about having a book being written about your experience in Rwanda?
Actually, yes, the book is about me, and I am grateful that we can put my story down so that the others can read and can know what happened in Rwanda and what happened particularly on me. What happened to me, it's very strange and unique, I can say, because, yes, I know my story, but it's unique.
Being around at the age of 21 years old at the time, can you share some of the memories and your experience at the time? Because it must have been harrowing.
Yeah, it was very hard because when you are at school and you expect actually bright life in the future, and suddenly the war and the struggles cut you down, you know, cut the story short, and you find yourself in a situation where it's very hard to actually to accommodate or to bear. So one of the things that I can share with you is the life that I lived out of the country, which is painful.
And why is it painful?
It's painful because I was still a young man with a future, and I was still looking before me the bright life, but I had to live outside of the home for a long time, and fear of life of dying anytime, sleeping outside of the forest, sleeping outside in the bush, and taking decisions that you you don't see any future or any outcome of these decisions just out of the fear.
Now, let me come back to Zinhle here now. The book title is Before Her Innocence Was Removed, Life After the Rwandan Genocide. Tell us about that title, because it seems that it was all blissful and innocent before the genocide.
Yes, the title, Before Her Innocence Was Removed, the her refers to the country. And not the little girl that you see here. I mean, you can easily think it's an abuse story. But if you allow me to go to page 21 of the book, which will give you an idea of what life was like in Rwanda, at least in Solomon's eyes. Because remember, this book is about Solomon, and from here, we're getting his perspective. How he viewed Rwanda when he was there. All right, I'm just going to read a very short paragraph. It says, united by one country, the same language and culture, Hutus and Tutsis lived side by side as neighbors, tended the same fields, drank from the same wells, and jubilated with the calabash of umtobe or uragwa. Umtobe, it's banana wine, banana juice. Uragwa is banana wine, in celebration of a good harvest or any joyous occasion. Hutu and Tutsi families were united in marriage and all ideals of what constituted a noble social order. So imagine from that, and then overnight, you are being told that Hutus are killing Tutsis and Tutsis are killing Hutus. So it was innocent. Solomon knew no evil, expected no evil, heard of no evil, but then overnight, Rwanda turned into a war zone.
I wanted to ask Solomon, in fact, what South Africans can learn from the Rwandan experience, but well, unfortunately, we lost him on the Skype line there. But from your perspective, Zinhle, writing this book, what do you think we can learn as South Africans from the Rwandan experience?
Rwanda and South Africa are similar in many ways. Remember in 1994, when they were having a genocide, we were voting. Yes. So Solomon moved from Rwanda to get a better life in South Africa, a peaceful life. But then he got himself sucked up into racism in a way, because he was the first black pastor at the Presbyterian Church in Newville. And he says that when he arrived there, the white members started leaving. And when he asked why they were leaving, they said the church has become black.
And that was his experience here in South Africa.
Yes, and remember what happened in January with the Penny Sparrow emails and what that escalated into. It could have easily blown up into something that, you know.
Now, the book is done.
Yes.
Took you some time to write it.
Yes.
When is it available on the bookshelves?
It is available already, but not in any bookshop in South Africa. You can get it online on Amazon.com or BN.com, that's Barnes & Noble. Or you could send an email to my marketing consultant, Randy Rogers. The email address is rrogers@partridgepublishing.com, or you could order copies from me. My email address is zmlamini@gmail.com.
Thank you so much, Zinhle, for your time and joining us here in studio. That was Zinhle Dlamini, author of the book Before Her Innocence Was Removed, Life After the Rwandan Genocide. Now, as you know, today marks 22 years since the Rwandan genocide, and the question that we're posing to you this morning, what do you think we as South Africans can learn from this tragic 1994 genocide. Let's take a look at some of the comments that have been coming through, and you remember that you can send it through to our Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. This one from Malaika B says the tenure of a country's wealth is tied to how many people are lifted from poverty. Karungu on SABC Newsroom, RE Rwanda economic growth. This one from Andries. He says, language that encourages genocide should be banned in South African public domain, i.e. lice and vampire voting cattle, etc. Remember the genocide in Rwanda concurred with that because people were called certain names like cockroaches. Bishop Wilfred says, South Africa must not allow tribalists and factions to ensure somebody's support. Stop tribalists, racist and xenophobe, says Bishop Wilfred. Those are some of the comments that we have available for you. You can keep them coming on the Facebook page as well as on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom. And we'll read them as we continue during the course of the program. Let's now take a look at some of the front pages from the newspapers around the continent. And we start off in Namibia, one of my favorite countries. The Namibian reports that the leak dubbed the Panama Papers also reveals new details about the well-published mafia's business connection between the Italians and Namibian businessman Zaki Njoma, the youngest son of the founding president Sam Nujoma. You remember him. Moving to Swaziland, the Swaziland Observer says that Swaziland Meteorological Services says that the seasonal rainfall outlook for 2016 winter season shows a generally increased chance of normal to above normal rains over the Highveld. And of course, Principal Court naked in office collapses there, also on the front page there. And finally, in Zimbabwe, the Chronicle reports a High Court judge has ruled that it is illegal for spouses to pry into each other's cell phones without permission. Snooping on your spouse's phone is not right. There you have it. You can't snoop on your partner's phone. Tsetsi Munari, you hear all these things all the time where people snoop on their spouse's phones. Not a right thing to do, so says the newspaper.
Yeah, well, according to the newspapers there, now it's illegal. So
yes.
It's a good thing, I guess.
Now, according to the World Health Organization, close to 2 million people die from tuberculosis and almost 9 million infections are registered per year. In most cases, people fail to show up for the screenings because of a lack of money or the awareness of the illness. Now, this has forced many scientists and researchers to think out of the box, as they always try to do, to find ways of detecting TB in a speedy and very cost-effective way. In studio, we have Tsetse Paul Manare here to tell us more about this unorthodox and really strange and bizarre way of detecting TB using giant rats.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah, it is actually quite strange. But if you think about, rats, they're animals and they can sniff, and, rodents, they're really, really good at it. Mm-hmm. But before you go on there, I thought this was quite interesting amidst, the rubbish and the dirt that's been going on in Gauteng, in Johannesburg, and people going on about maybe possibilities of rats spreading pests and, spreading disease all around. So I thought maybe I should come out and defend the rat. And then there's this organization called APOPO. There it is on the screen, the APOPO. It's a Belgian non-government organization, and they've been using giant rats to detect landmines, actually, in war-torn countries, even in Mozambique. And now they've also started to use the same technique to detect TB in Tanzania.
Now, that one I've seen. They actually have them on leashes as they go in and search for these. But who came up with this bizarre idea in terms of the scientists? Do you know?
Yeah, the founder of APAPO actually is a guy called Bart Wierkens. He's Belgian. And he came up with this idea because he knows the mechanism of how rats actually work. Because those rats are actually quite special when it comes to, their sniffing abilities. They can actually, they sniff in stereo, as they call it. So they can actually distinguish two different smells with one sniff. Imagine that.
So the dog that we normally would use for sniffing operations is in trouble.
Yeah.
Because now the rat might be taking their space.
Exactly. The dog is almost useless when it comes to these giant rats that you'd find in East Africa. Yeah, so, because dogs are a lot more domesticated compared to rats. Rats are a lot more of survivors. others, and they really adapt to certain environments. And they use that trait actually to make sure, or to make it detect such things such as TB and landmines.
Now, I tell you what, I heard some strange things where people even use bees to give them, I don't know, they give them longevity or whatever. But this one for me is a first.
Yeah, this one, if you look at one of the screens there at the back, they're actually huge. They're not playing things, they're almost as big as cats. And the way they do this is actually quite interesting. From the minute that they are born, they get introduced in a social environment with lots of other rats and with human interaction. And when they're about 3 or 4 weeks old, then they start teaching them the smelling of positive samples in TB. And how they do that is actually they start off with one sample, which is obviously positive, and then they have a clicker on it. So whenever the rat smells them, they click on it, so the rat remembers, okay, I will hear a click when I'm at the positive, and it gets rewarded with a food sample, so a food particle. And then they put 3 or 4 more samples with one positive one. So it will sniff all of them, but it will stop at the slightly stranger smelling one because it's now waiting for that clicker. And once it gets it right, it will hear a click, and then they'll give it food again. And then they take it even further and put up to 11 samples. And that's when it becomes difficult for the rats. But the more advanced ones can actually do it within, 3 or 6 weeks.
I have it here on the screen. TB detection, rat training, multiple sample evaluation.
Yes, that's
Can you believe it? Now, so what you are suggesting is that the rat infestation that we currently have in Johannesburg, we can actually use these rats in our houses.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I'm here to defend the rat. We can actually use those, but the problem with most of our rats is that they're actually quite small, and their genetic sort of manipulation or genetic compounds is not as strong as these ones that are trained from birth. And they actually need to be much bigger, because the bigger rats actually have a stronger sense of smell than the tinier ones, because they're a lot more sort of evolved than those ones.
But I tell you, in some of our townships, I've seen some big rats. I tell you.
Myself, yes. I was actually once scared when I saw a rat that it was all white and it looked like a big cat. At first I thought, oh, look at this nice little kitty cat. And next thing, it was just one big rodent.
Tsietsi Monari, the defender of the rat, in studio with us. Thank you, Tsietsi. He is defending the rat, he says, and of course the rat can do a number of things for you. They can detect your TB, so use them in your house if you have one there to detect whether or not you have TB. I don't know how's that going to work for you, but you can let us know on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsroom, also on the Facebook page. We've got to take a short break, and we'll probably give you your weather forecast right after that.
They are basically arresting him, continue to arrest him on behalf of the apartheid government.
We are dealing with effects. We are not dealing with the causes. And for as long as we deal with effects, we are never going to solve this problem.
What do these people need in prison? Why are they there? The PAC, as Dr. Peku is saying, has been seeking answers, and they're not coming.
What kind of answers are you getting?
I really think I've answered that question.
I think it's a difficult question. I don't have an answer for it. How was it possible that they could operate with such impunity?
The only thing you want is closure.
The only thing we want is closure. And unfortunately, I don't really have sympathy for the idea that if you're too old, you shouldn't stand trial.
That's Rights and Recourse with Dumile Mateza, every Sunday at 2 p.m. Central African Time, only on the SABC News Channel.
Now this is Newsroom on SABC News, Channel 404, Jumbo Africa. And a very warm welcome to the final hour as we broadcast live from our Auckland Park studios in Johannesburg, South Africa, to the rest of the African continent. I'm Elvis Preston. I'll be with you until 12 o'clock. As you know, we're also streaming live on YouTube with the entire show now available on our YouTube channel. So you can go there and find it all there. We're also asking you a question on Rwanda today. The big question, what can South Africa learn from the Rwanda genocide back in 1994, the anniversary today? At the SABC Newsroom, that is the news handle, or the Twitter handle, as well as on the Facebook page. But first, let's take a look at your news headlines. Wednesday, August the 3rd, has been set aside for the 2016 municipal elections. Winnie Madikizela Mandela has lost her case against the late Nelson Mandela's executors at the Mthatha High Court in the Eastern Cape. We'll give you the latest update from there in a moment. And the African National Congress's new parliamentary chief, Webb Jackson Mthembu, has questioned the legal advice the party and Parliament were given on the Nkandla matter. Now, those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out what's happening from the sports desk.
Thank you very much, Elvis. This is what's going to be happening in the sports. We've got quite a lot overnight as well as this morning. Looking forward to on the weekend as well.
How about this? Yes!
Kerry player at the age of 80 sinks a hole-in-one at the 115-yard 7th hole in the par 3 contest on the eve of the 2016 Masters. Real Madrid suffer a shock first leg defeat to UEFA Champions League quarter-final debutants Wolfsburg.
Defending ball in, it's 2! This is sensational! Wolfsburg 2, Real Madrid 0.
All this as Swiss police raid UEFA headquarters looking for a contract reportedly signed by former UEFA official Gianni Infantino. We'll also be trying to keep tabs on what's happening with the preparations for the Iron Man happening out in the Eastern Cape this weekend. Janine Lee should be standing by, but more about that at about 11:30. Back to you, Elvis.
Thank you, Kendall. That was Gary the Man. Unbelievable performance, eh?
A fantastic performance, 80-year-old, and is still sinking them in.
I'm telling you. He'll be back a little bit later with more, so you have to stay tuned. Now, Wednesday, August the 3rd, has been set aside for the 2016 municipal elections. This is your top story. The announcement was made by the President Jacob Zuma yesterday. The IEC has its work cut out for it now that the election date has been proclaimed. The election machinery must kick in. Meanwhile, the IEC says it's ready for voter registrations this coming weekend. It hopes more youngsters will register to vote. Registration stations will be open from 8 until 5 p.m. Saturday and Sunday, the whole day, so you don't have any excuse not to register to vote. You can go there and do it. Over the weekend, that's Saturday and Sunday, all the time in the world to do it from 8 until 5 in the afternoon. So do it. Right now, let's move on. Top story. Judgment has been delivered in the Mthatha High Court in the Eastern Cape in the case involving Winnie Madikizela Mandela and the late Nelson Mandela's executors. Let's now cross live to our SABC reporter Zimkita Mkanana, who is in Mthatha, the High Court. A very good morning to you, Zimkita. We understand that judgment has been delivered. Tell us more.
Welcome back to the High Court here in the Eastern Cape, Elvis. Well, the judgment was very brief. It was less than 5 minutes. However, the document itself containing the judgment is a 22-pager, which has all the details why this application that was made by Mama Winnie Madikizela Mandela was dismissed this morning. Some of the key issues in the judgment were the reason why the land was donated by the Department of Land Affairs to Nelson Mandela in 1995, and that process was completed in 1997. Second on her heads of argument was the fact that despite their civil marriage, they were also married in customary marriage, which took place by the payment of 10 cattle to the Madikizela family before they were joined together in civil marriage. But those two aspects are the main reasons why this application was dismissed this morning. One of the reasons why this court felt they didn't have to take application into consideration is because the period between 1997, when the land was donated to Mr. Nelson Mandela, and when she made the application, they felt that there was unreasonable delay of 17 years, and she should have made the application while former president, the late Nelson Mandela, was still alive. And secondly, on the issue of customary law marriage, they say that in the judgment, when they went into civil marriage, the customary law marriage was then dissolved, and then civil marriage was then the one that was recognized as the union that put these two families and these two people together. And when that marriage was dissolved, it then dissolved the entire union between them. So these are the main reasons why Winnie Madikizela Mandela will not be granted the Qunu home.
Was she in court today?
Well, Elvis, previously there were a lot of senior counsels that represented both sides. Even if there was a full bench of judges. Today it was a different mood. There was a different judge just to hand down the judgment. Even the members of the two councils were not present here. They just sent representatives to get the judgment for themselves. She was also not here. Last time we saw Advocate George Bezos here himself representing the executors, but none of those people were here today. It was just people to come and take the judgment. So we have not been able to get any reaction from any of the two sides how they received this judgment. However, we know for sure that this is a back step. This is taking Winnie Madikizela Mandela a few steps back, because she was adamant. She was adamant that customary law marriage should be taken into consideration, and also the donation that was made by the department to give Mandela exclusive rights to the land at Qunu was improper. But this court made a different decision today, and that was not what she wanted to hear. So we're still going to try and get reaction from both sides and see how they receive the judgment. However, on the other side, George Bezos said when he was here last time that why did she wait for such a long time before she could raise these issues? Because she did not only know that they have divorced when she got the will, when the will was being read to the public. She knew all the time that her union between Nelson Mandela and herself was dissolved. So George Bezos, I'm sure, will be happy to see how things have turned up. So we'd like you to see what other steps they'll be taking once they go through this judgment in the afternoon today.
Zimkita, thank you so much for that update. That's the breaking news there from the Eastern Cape. Winnie Madikizela Mandela lost her bid to own the Qunu House. Moving on now, the African National Congress's new parliamentary chief whip, Jackson Mthembu, has questioned the legal advice that the party and parliament were given on the Nkandla matter. Mthembu apologized for the resolution that the ANC majority in parliament took on the Nkandla reports. But the party stands by its decision to not remove the president from office. The Democratic Alliance will meanwhile start parliamentary disciplinary processes today against ANC MPs. The opposition party says the ANC caucus in parliament must be held accountable.
Facing the media, the new chief whip wouldn't budge on the party's vote to back the president. But he had questions on how they managed to get to this point.
We are sorry, because we gave an impression that indeed what we did was correct, but as we all know, the court has set aside that resolution of Parliament. But did we need a court to set aside? Should we on our own not have been aware?
He was referring to the ANC resolution that the president was not liable to repay anything on the upgrades at his home. Mthembu says they will be meeting with Speaker Baleka Mbete to discuss the legal advice Parliament is getting. Mthembu and his deputy Doris Lakude, however, insists that Zuma never refused to pay back the money. But the ANC caucus agree that the Constitutional Court judgment should be followed by both President and Parliament. Abra Barbia, SABC News, Parliament.
Home Affairs Minister Malusi Gigaba says the new process of applying for IDs and passports online will be secure. Now, today the department will introduce its e-channel pilot project at Gallagher Estate, north of Johannesburg. The project aims to lessen the burden on Home Affairs officers. Speaking earlier on Morning Live, Gigaba discussed the launch.
We're working towards ensuring that we roll this application also to our Home Affairs offices. Because what we're trying to do is to make it convenient for people to apply for their documents. Technology is now an enabler and it can be secure. We can find secure applications that enable people to apply for their documents without having to go to Home Affairs. So we're trying to introduce innovation at Home Affairs that's going to make it very, very convenient for people to apply for their documents without having to experience the inconvenience of standing in long queues. When we launch this project, we're going to start with the 30 to 35-year-olds. We're targeting young people. This is the 40th anniversary of the June 16th uprising. We want to pay homage to these young people who paid with their dear lives to bring South Africa to where it is. So we're starting with that group because when we looked at the National Population Register, we found out that this is a group of about 4 million people that's manageable, that can be able that we can use as a pilot.
We'll keep you up to speed with that story there. Now, ANC alliance partners have agreed to remain united amidst the challenges currently facing the party. This emerged during the first day of the party's Provincial Alliance Summit that is underway in Kimberley.
Party leaders say current challenges facing the party can only be overcome if they act collectively. They called on the party faithful not to be swayed by calls for support.
You never take the president of the organization, you put him up there for targeting and say, I will defend you there. You make your leader of the organization, any leader, to take refuge in the organization. As you defend the organization, you defend its leadership.
The party says they are now on a mission to humbly engage with the people to clarify their stance about such issues.
With the situation existing out there that has been fully and ably described by comrades who have spoken before me, how do we go and talk to our people and make sure that they understand us, they continue to love us, and that they continue to give us their support?
Issues such as social and economic transformation, amongst others, are expected to be tackled. Puleng Mdupe, SABC News, Kimberley.
4,000 picket-up workers have been found guilty of participating in an unprotected work stoppage. Now, they went through disciplinary hearings last week. The city of Johannesburg is now waiting for recommendations on sanctions against the employees. The strike by picket-up workers is meanwhile into its 5th week. On Monday, the city of Johannesburg and Kusatu held talks with the union SAMWU. A deal has been presented to workers in a bid to break the deadlock. According to the city, the negotiations are about salary disparities, and the city says it cannot afford the 10,000 rand wage demands. SAMWU would not be drawn on the talks. The union says it will comment after consulting its members.
We were hoping, if all goes well, that we should see an end to the strike on Friday, if all goes well. So all of us are crossing our fingers because we are alive to the challenges that we're facing.
It's not an easy situation. It is a situation where you are dealing with intimidation. You are dealing with sometimes workers that feel threatened, that sometimes after being intimidated do not go back, and your entire operation is affected by people feeling intimidated.
Now, today marks the 22nd anniversary and the official day of mourning the death of nearly 1 million people in Rwanda in the genocide in 1994. The majority of those who perished are essentially from the Tutsi minority tribe, allegedly at the hands of the Hutu extremists who were in government at the time.
Scenes that will forever linger in Rwandans' hearts. 22 years later, the country still reels from the slaughter of about 800,000 of its citizens. In a space of just 10 days, 2 million Rwandans fled their homes to neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo and Burundi. The Rwandan genocide was reportedly triggered on the 6th of April in 1994, when a plane carrying then-President Juvenal Habyarimana and his Burundian counterpart Cyprien Ntaryamira, both of whom were Hutus, was shot down, killing everyone on board. About 85% of Rwandans are Hutus, but the Tutsi minority has long dominated the country. In 1959, the Hutus overthrew the Tutsi monarchy, and tens of thousands of Tutsis fled to neighboring countries, including Uganda. A group of Tutsi exiles formed a rebel group, the Rwandan Patriotic Front, which invaded Rwanda in 1990, and the fighting continued until a 1993 peace deal was agreed. Human rights groups say the RPF killed thousands of Hutu civilians as they took power. However, the RPF denies this.
Now, as global company Massey Ferguson puts final touches to its vision of the Future Farm Mechanization event to be hosted at the Future Farm in Lusaka, farm agents at the old Soweto market in Lusaka say they're thrilled to have the event hosted in their country. The market has been in existence for more than 20 years, with more than 3,000 traders. Farm mechanization has been identified as a key driver for growth in African agriculture. Our reporter Liabo Setu is in Zambia, and she visited the old Soweto market to gauge the mood of agricultural dealers ahead of the show.
Massey Ferguson will be displaying machinery that will be helping farmers to mechanize their operations. They'll be displaying this about 10 kilometers outside of the Kenneth Kaunda International Airport. But I've made my way down here to Soweto Market to find out where farmers dump their markets and who takes over from that. This place is called Soweto Market, but I was able to get hold of one of the elders or one of the chairpersons, or he calls himself a farmer's agent, Mr. Mike Nimbiri, who will tell us about this place and how farmers get here, what do they sell to them, and where the produce goes from here. Mr. Nimbiri, thank you very much for your time. Tell me a little bit about the history of this place.
This place was discovered way back. A lot of farmers bring their produce here. They arrive at this place around 04 hours in the morning. When they bring their produce here, that produce is taken over by their agents. Agents usually sell them to the retailers who take them, others in the compound, others take them on the cover belt.
But, you know, my experience coming here, obviously it's my first day, but the conditions here have shocked me to the core. How are people able to access this place? I know that I've had to rent out these boots that I'm wearing just to get to the marketplace. Are people able to get here?
Yeah, they usually come here because they have no any other alternative, since this market is like a hub of all markets in Lusaka. So all of them get their produce from this market. So there's no way out they can avoid to come to this place.
You tell me that it's mostly busy around 4 or 3 a.m. in the morning. How much do people make? A trader, for instance, the gentleman there that's selling it's onions. How much would people make roundabout?
It depends on the quantity of the goods that you get. Others make up to 1,000, others 2,000 per day.
Let's talk about the event that is happening on Thursday, the Massey Ferguson show. You say that you saw it on the newspaper. You know that they are trying to promote mechanization in farms that will help Africa. What's your feeling around that?
At least that will bring a good development to our agricultural system, because most of our Zambian farmers use manpower instead of machinery. So at least to improve our agriculture system.
Do you not have a lot of people that actually do handwork in the farms, and will that not be affected if now there's a lot of mechanization taking place?
Anyway, there's work that needs human resource and work that will need machinery. So I don't think it will bring any effect on our local manpower.
The Zambian economy is growing very fast compared to a lot of countries. Compared to our very own South Africa, for instance, the economy is growing far better. Can you see that kind of growth in Zambia, in the kind of place that you work in here in Soweto Market?
Yeah, we've seen there's a lot of development taking place in Zambia, in Zambia, particularly all these towns and rural areas. If anything, this place has been earmarked for development. There's even a circular that is going on that this market will be improved at a standard of a new trade area.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nyimbiri.
You are most welcome.
Mr. Nyimbiri has told us about the kind of developments they're expecting at this place. This seems like it's a developing place. It's a place that's buzzing with activity, and as we already know that the economy in this country is doing far better than a lot of its neighbors in Southern Africa. We will be attending the Massey Ferguson show on Thursday. We will be bringing you the machinery that's on display, how it works and how it's going to be able to help farmers, and hopefully we'll also be able to catch up with farmers themselves to find out from them how they expect these kind of products that will be on display to assist them.
Well, that's your news for now. We'll take a short break and we'll be right back after that.
Hindu devotees took a holy dip at Sangam, the confluence of rivers Ganges. People and priests made their way to the banks before the break of dawn. Security arrangements were in place for police forces patrolling on the river banks to ensure smooth functioning of the event.
A mobile museum in India's West Mumbai is highlighting the skills and creativity of residents of one of Asia's largest slums.
That's what we've been doing here, is creating this platform, and we came here to help it develop and to, just build it up.
Welcome back now. Mpumalanga's Department of Community Safety, Security and Liaison has suspended 12 traffic officers accused of corruption. The 12 suspects were arrested in Bushbuck-Reeds and Sabi, Dwarsloop and Mbombela last weekend. Now, this is part of the provincial government's means to curb corruption in all spheres of government. The officers involved appeared in court on Monday and were released on a 5,000 rand bail each. Newsroom talked to Mpumalanga's General Manager, Transport Regulation, John Nkuna, yesterday.
Several times by the members of the community, and they are the mostly affected, and this is also an indication that the department is responding positively to the complaints by the members of the public, and it also sent a very good message to those people who are thinking that they can be corrupt and go free. I think it's a very, very good thing.
Talk to us about the sting operation itself. How was it carried out?
Yeah, although I won't go into full details of this because we're still going on with the operation, but it emanated from the basis of complaints, members of public complained to the department about corrupt activities that are taking place, especially on the roads by traffic officers. We then worked a project with the South African Police Service and the department and put a process in place, and hence their arrest. I don't wish to go into details because, as I'm saying, we still have other matters to resolve that relates to corruption.
Did you perhaps get any tip-offs from the public in terms of the operations there?
Yes, it was a tip-offs which came to the department from members of the public, and some of the members of the public who were directly affected, and some of the members of the public, of course, assisted the department to carry this operation successfully.
So did they phone a special line, or do you have a hotline where motorists or people can report incidents of fraud and corruption?
They contacted the department directly. We do have a provincial corruption hotline, but in this instance, they came directly to the department, some of them, and some of them they called our office directly and made a complaint. Some of them, they were in writing. They wrote down what happened and explained some of it, and we therefore started a project to cap down this corruption.
Do you have any monitoring mechanisms to ensure that this doesn't happen again and that corruption is curbed in the department?
Actually, we have been doing that all along. It's just a pity because some of these people, when they're involved in corruption, they just create their own comfort zones there. They will want to see themselves continuing because they make a lot of money, I believe. We have been all along, during our management meeting, during our outreach, even our MEC, during the meetings with the traffic officers, we're raising these matters and alerting them and sensitizing them that corruption is not a good thing, and if they do corruption, this is what will happen to them. I'm happy that ultimately, at the end of the day, this is what happened, and then they will believe that doing corruption is not the right thing.
Is there a sense that you have a very strong case against the arrested officers and that you are sending out a strong message to others?
Yes, definitely. Definitely, we are having a very strong case. That's why the department is in a process now of suspending all traffic officers involved. Some of them are already suspended. We will just suspend all of them within a short space of time, but we are still following the right procedures of doing so.
Now, if motorists and the community want to report any fraud cases, what number or can they call, Mr. Nkuna?
We have our number because we have a unit that has been established within the department which works hand in hand with the South African police. They can use 013 7566 404 403 or 407.
Schooling has grounded to a standstill in the Northern Cape schools. Tshwahalang Secondary School in Jan Kempdorp in the Northern Cape is closed. Now, this is the third day of no schooling. This comes after parents barred the children from going to school as they protest against the Provincial Education Department for transferring their children to a new school that is outside the township without consulting them. Our SABC reporter Selwani Kakao now joins us from Jan Kempdorp. A very good morning to you and welcome.
Good morning. Yes, we are outside the school premises of Tshwahalang Secondary School in Jan Kempdorp, which is a small town about 90 kilometers outside Kimberley, here in the Northern Cape. This is now the third day of no proper schooling here. As you can see, a lot of children outside instead of being in classrooms. Now, if you would remember, the children have been barred from going to school by parents who are very unhappy about the recent arrangement that has been done by the Provincial Education Department of moving the learners from different local schools where they attended the first term of the curriculum. The parents are very unhappy about this, saying it is causing a lot of inconveniences. Now, the Education Department also explained to us that this whole arrangement has been done mainly to address the challenge of overcrowded classrooms here at various schools in the province. But here with me, I have one parent, Constance Mudiakhotla, who is here to tell us more about these issues and to tell us also from their side as the community, what would be the best way forward? Good morning, Precious. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, Khema.
Now, we understand that you guys have a lot of issues that are not, sitting well with you guys regarding this arrangement of the schools. What are some of these issues that you guys are not happy about?
Taba ke gore mogokgo o tsele ditshwetso a le esi a sa rulaganya le bagolo gore bana ba tsewa ba isiwa ko sekolong se sentšha se se tlo go bulwa nou ya dumelatsane le gore go tlo go bidiwa bagolo e ne kganye dulolang hatse gore nna ke le motsadi ke tsa ngwana ke muisa ka ko sekolong se sentšha ka bakela gore o gautshwaneng le gae e ne se kganya gore bana ba tsewe hela go tla ga dumelatsane tsa bagolo jaaka no bagolo ba dutse ko gae ba itse bana ba bone ba le motlhohala mare to find out bana ba bone ba tshotso ba isitswe ko masakeng mo le gore ba dula sekgele se se telele go tlhela ko sekolong sele ene se wa ga sa dula sentle mo batsane le bana tota ga sa dula sentle ga ra itumela tota se mogokgo a se tshotseng nou yana.
Okay, now we understand also some of the parents say they were not at all informed about this. How true is this?
Ga gona mogolo o poitseng ka gore go tlile ba tlile ka difomo go gae gore bana ba tla go tlatsa difomo tsa gore bone ba batla go tsena sekolo mo tlhohala e seng gore ba isiwe ko sekolong se so bana ba masakeng ke bone ba tshwantse ba ye kwa ka gore ba gautshwane le sekolo so ditumelatsano ke gore principal o se ditshwetso le barutwa bana ba ba rileng so re ne bua re kgang ke gore ha mogokgo a na le conflict le bana ba sekolo a ska ntshetsa di-crashes mo baneng a kopane le bagolo gore so se se kgone go rarabolola e ne kgang ya gore bana ba ba tsewang ba isiwa kwa o ska na bothata le ngwana o ntsha conflict ya ngwana mo ngwaneng mare motsadi wa ngwana ena sa itse bothata ba ngwana gore why a isitswe ko masakeng.
Now, from your side as the community, how do you feel about this? What do you think would be the best solution about this? What do you want to see done about the situation?
Ke batla go bona bana ba boetse sekolong ba rutiwa jaaka bana dithuto di tswelele ka gore ha go le yana e nna kganya gore dithuto di salla ko morago ka re kwatara ya ntlha e fedile re latela kwatara ya bobedi gore re solve se ke gore mogokgo a kopane le rona le batsadi le MEC a neteng go tlo go dula hatse go rarabolwe kganye because this thing is going too far ka gore ha e ntse e tswelela yana e tlo go eletsa e dirile sekolo le dithuto di stope.
And with regards to the protest and barring the learners from going to school, this will continue up until when?
Sentle ga re ikemisetse gore ene protest e ne gore tla heletsa gore letse bana gore ba ska helele ke ne ke letsa gore kgwedi e before e fele MEC a neteng mogokgo a nete go dulwe hatse kganye e hele ka gore ha e sa hele e tlo go nna ntwa e masho ka re sekolo se ka se tsene go tla ga gore ba utlwe maikutlo a bana gore ba utlwagala yang.
Thank you. That was Constance Mudiakhotla telling us a bit about the issues that they are not happy about regarding the arrangement. She's also saying that the parents were not informed and some were not at all consulted about this. Now, they also say this is not a good arrangement because now the school is very far from where most of the learners live. They want to see the MEC to have a meeting with them. And now the MEC also did indicate to us that she will have a meeting with the community tomorrow. She will be in Jan Camp to have a meeting with the community. That's all from us for now. Back to you in the studio.
Well, there you have it, Silwani Kakao, our reporter in Jan Kempdorp. Now, for more on the story, we're joined by the MEC of Education in the Northern Cape, Martha Bartlett from Kimberley. A very good morning to you, ma'am, and welcome.
Good morning to you also. How are you?
Very well, thank you, MEC. First and foremostly, tell us, just give us your perspective, why the department felt that they had to remove the learners to a new school.
The reason why we moved the children to a new school is because, like I said, when we opened Rodapan High School, the problem is we have overcrowding in our schools. And if you want the best education and quality education for our children, we can't afford for them to be more than 30 or 35 in a classroom. Where they are overcrowded, then it means when the classes are overcrowded, we will not have quality learning. To me, education is very much important. Now, so that's the reason why we move them, but we also understand the frustrations there.
Now, for those viewers that do not know the geography of the Northern Cape, how far is Rodapan from Jan Kempdorp?
It's almost 90 km from Kimberley, but the Rodapan School is something else because it's in Kimberley. Jan Camp is the school where I'm going to tomorrow because I've heard that the parents are not happy and the parents want me to be there, but I will definitely be there. The only problem is I couldn't go there on Tuesday because I opened the school in Rodapan, and tomorrow by 2, I will definitely speak to the parents, I will speak to the community and to the learners because we don't want the situation where children will be kept out of schools because the parents feel that there was not a proper consultation session. And to me, consultation with the parents, with the community, is very much important.
Now, why was that consultation not taken prior?
So we will definitely be there tomorrow.
So why wasn't it taken
Sorry?
prior, the consultation with the parents, why wasn't it done prior to the move the children to another school?
No, there were definitely consultation processes with the parents. The department headed consultation sessions, but it seems that there was a communication breakdown. Now, I'm going to speak to them and also speak to the department because they also promised me, and I know that they went there. But I don't want to play the department against the parents now. So that's why I say I will go there tomorrow. I acted for 6 months in the education department, and I know the processes were done, and I am now the MEC of education. But whether I act or not, the parents' situation, the inputs of the parents is very much important. And I already spoke to the HOD of the department, and he said that they went there, and according to the paper that I saw, I know that they were there. But like I said, if the parents are still not happy, we will definitely go there. We will be there tomorrow at 2 in the afternoon.
Now, seeing that you're going to speak to the parents, I think maybe the concern is here that the new school is 90 km outside of Jan Kempdorp. How are the learners going to get there?
No. The new school is not 90 km. I was speaking about a school in Rhodopan and Kimberley. It's not 90 km. The only thing what we also had is that children who are staying, say for instance, in front of the school, some of them are moved to another school. Now that we can also consult and speak about that. I think we'll also give them time for a week to see what is the real issue there, even if it means I must be there for a week, to see that the consultation process will go through. But none of them are 90 cases, because 90 cases is too far for us to put children in that school. But I think, yes, about the communication and consultation. Sorry?
So you will discuss with them all these issues and take in consideration that they don't move too far from their place of, from where they stay?
No, that I will definitely do. Yeah, that I will definitely do. Because, and I really want to speak to the parents also, because we don't want a situation where our children must be out of school for a week or even one day, because then we will really lose focus. So that, I said, to me, is very much important to speak to them, to speak to the learners, and to speak to the teachers. And I will definitely take the department, officials of the department, with me to Jan Kemp. So they must also explain in my presence what happened, because the last time that we had such a situation, the parents also told me there was a communication breakdown, and then we had a meeting. We were fortunate to have a meeting with the people in Rhodopan, and I will definitely do that also. The unfortunate part is that I didn't know that there are some parents who are still not happy. But to me, the principal point here is for us to get our parents happy, to get our children happy, and our teachers. And if children are far from schools, and if parents do have a problem, I will be open tomorrow to speak to them, and I will take a week to make sure that our children will be in school, our parents will be happy, because I think the problem there is not that the parents don't want their children in school. I think what the parents want is just a consultation process, which happened, but if they are not happy, I will definitely do that.
MEC, thank you so much for your time, and I'm going to hold you to your promise. We're going to speak to you again next week to find out what the process is, if that is okay with you.
No, definitely, that is one thing that you can be sure of. Because to me, to make promises in the community, especially where it's our children's concerns, I will definitely go there and I will make sure that their children will be in school, and I will make sure that their parents will listen, and I will also listen to them. Because to me, communication is the most important thing that you can have between parents, stakeholders, and the children. And education is our quality, and the children is our future. And the children can be also sure, because I saw them, they can also be sure that I will make sure that we keep our promise as the province of the Northern Cape.
MEC, once again, thank you so much, and good luck with your consultation process.
Yeah, no, definitely. You are welcome to call me back anytime. I will be available.
That was the MEC of Education in the Northern Cape, Martha Bartlett, speaking to us, and we'll do a follow-up next week sometime. So you have to stay tuned. Your favorite channel, of course. This is Newsroom. Let's take a break, and Kendall will be back with your sports news.
Tonight in an SABC exclusive news expose, we show you how firearm proficiency certificates are fraudulently sold for a few thousand rand.
What you did was illegal. Do you at least acknowledge that? What you did is illegal.
I say it could be probably illegal.
Nigeria is Africa's second largest tomato producer.
The chief executive of Enrisco says he started the company with a capital of $75 million.
The problem now is that the market has been created in China.
He says that doing business in the country is becoming more difficult every day.
Welcome back. We top our stories for this sports bulletin with this one. Almost 1,900 athletes will line up on Hobie Beach in Nelson Mandela Bay on Sunday for the 12th Standard Bank Ironman African Championship. The event boasts a strong professional field as well as a new race route. South Africa will be pinning hopes on Matt Trotman, Kyle Buckingham and James Cunnama. The UK's Jodie Swallow remains a firm favourite in the women's race. Now, for the professionals, it's just another day at the office, but for the amateurs, it's an endurance event of epic proportions. We now cross to our senior reporter, Janine Lee, to find out more. Janine, thank you so much for standing by and taking us through this. Please, take us through this.
Kendall, yes, good morning. And as you said, an event of epic proportions. Just to give you an idea, they're going to swim 3.8 kilometers in the sea, get out of the sea, get onto their bikes and cycle 180 kilometers, put their bikes down and then do a full marathon, 42.2 kilometers. And that's no easy feat. Now, what they'll expect the professionals back. The first men should be home in between 8 and 8.5 hours. The first women an hour later after that. And the amateurs have 16 hours, 45 minutes to finish this event, so it's going to be a long day at the office for them. But while all eyes are on the professionals, Kendall, we have to think about the amateurs. Remember, the professionals, this is their job. This is what they do. They've got all day to practice, all day to train. They've got sports scientists behind them, helping them with nutrition, etc. It's the amateurs we look at. They hold down a full job. They run families. They have children. They have husbands. They have wives. And in between all of that, they have to fit in the training to become an Ironman. Now, I'm joined this morning by Barbara Fisher-Hill. Barbara, welcome. You are an amateur. You hold down a full-time job. What has motivated you to do this? Because I believe it's going to be your first.
It's going to be my first. I've done 3 halves and I thoroughly enjoyed them. And, yeah, I didn't think I'd ever do a full. And then a friend of mine who works for our local radio station gave me a slot in the full, and I thought I could give it a try.
Okay, for our viewers, take us through what an average training day is for you. Not only the training, you've got a job as well.
Yeah, well, generally we're up at 4:15 to do our training. During the week, it's shorter cycling and running. The most we run on a weekday is about 16 Ks. So we've got to start very early because I'm quite a slow runner. So it takes me longer than the average person to do that. And then our long cycles are on a weekend, but ready and showered and ready for work by 8 o'clock, having done about a 35 to 50K cycle during the week.
And anything after hours? Come home from work?
In my specific training program, I've got a swimming coaching. I do swimming coaching lessons twice a week in the evenings, but other than that, most of it's done in the morning. Before the family's awake, I'm home.
Barbara, how important is it to get buy-in from family?
It's very, very important. I've had a little bit of pressure from home because you're tired. I don't know how the people can do it with small children. My children are adults, and fortunately my husband's very, very sporty. He's a hockey player, so he's away in the evenings quite a bit. So yeah, but it's to me it's a selfish sport if you've got small children.
But you'd encourage people to do it.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
Barbara, just quickly take us through the 3 disciplines. You start with the swim. Where do the challenges come in the swim?
I think depending on the weather, if it's windy, then the sea's choppy. A lot of people are afraid of the ocean. I was terribly afraid of the ocean, and a friend of mine actually taught me how to swim in the sea, because I never did. So I never think of sharks. A lot of people are afraid of the sharks. But swimming, I love swimming. So to me, it's not a big challenge.
And the bike, I mean, 180 kilometers, that's a long time. What do you sit on average on the bike for 180? What would it be, or what are you expecting it to be?
I'm probably going to do over about 7.5 to 8 hours on the bike. As you said earlier, it's a long day in the office. And it's just, you've got to put time in the saddle so that, because obviously your bottom gets quite sore. And I don't know, I think the secret is to take each discipline and like compartmentalize each discipline.
Have you set a time for yourself for this?
I'd love to do a sub-16, but...
Now, unfortunately, you're going to have to fade out of that particular beautiful interview that Jenny Lee is doing out there in Port Elizabeth, a preview to the Ironman over the weekend, because the Home Affairs Minister, Malusi Gigaba, says the new process of applying for IDs and passports online will be secure. Today, the department will introduce its e-channel pilot project at Gallagher State, north of Joburg.
Today, as government, the country's banking sector, to launch the wonderful project that will see people applying for identity documents at their banking institutions. This is a very important development as we seek to build a state that is responsive to the needs of the people by providing better, faster, and more secure services. This service is one step further in the ongoing quest to make the services provided by the Department of Home Affairs more accessible to all our people. Government is modernizing the Department of Home Affairs and is also improving security. This next step entails better use of technology in order to improve the lives of all citizens. Government cannot do this alone. That is why we are entering into a partnership with banks to extend access and to empower their clients. We are happy indeed that the banks have teamed up with the Department of Home Affairs. This department is central to the lives of our people and all others residing in our country. Among other things, the department empowers individuals as it affirms their identity and citizenship, providing them with IDs, passports, and other enabling documents. People cannot apply for their grants, housing, medical care, or even use some forms of transport without having to produce documentation issued by Home Affairs. The department also facilitates immigration in and out of the country, ensuring uninterrupted, efficient flow of persons in and out of the Republic. The department is the first port of call for visitors who contributed to South Africa's economic development through trade, investment, tourism, skills, and research. The department determines how migrants come into our country, how they are treated in our country, and how South Africa's humanitarian obligations are met, including those arising from Geneva Convention and the other United Nations conventions. We therefore request the private sector to support Home Affairs as much as possible. The department is now part of the security cluster because we realize the need to improve the security aspects of migration. The department will thus work with others in the cluster to ensure that persons who enter the Republic are cleared and that all who remain inside can be accounted for. In doing this job, the department will need the cooperation of all citizens as well and all the people of the country, as well as those who are here, either on business or as visitors, in whatever form they are in the country. We urge all to contribute to the promotion of legal immigration and to ensure that all who are in the country have the correct documentation. This will also ensure that they receive the necessary support from government agencies. Compatriots, indeed, today we are moving a step ahead in improving services to our people. The introduction of the Smart ID card in 2013 to replace the current green barcoded ID book was a milestone. The National Population Register has more than 38 million citizens who are in possession of a green ID book. All those books must be replaced within a period of 5 years. Furthermore, there are 1 million additional 16-year-olds every year that require smart ID cards. A formidable challenge has been that the 407 Home Affairs offices are not designed for this capacity, for covering over 38 million citizens within a 5-year period. These offices are insufficient to handle the replacement of the green ID book within specified timelines. The main objective of the partnership with the banks is thus to broaden the centers at which people can apply for smart ID cards and passports. This collaboration was facilitated through the South African Banking Risk Information Center and the Banking Association South Africa. Accordingly, the department has entered into agreements with 4 major banks to increase its service footprint. This should help greatly to increase the uptake of the smart ID card and the issuing of passports. The participating banks are ABSA, as you have heard, FNB, Nedbank, and Standard Bank. With the 4 banks participating, it is possible to reach over 20 million clients with improved queue management and enhanced client experience. This also benefits the banks by reducing fraud through confirming the identity of clients. We certainly look forward to the involvement of other banks, as this will further accelerate the rollout to as many branches as possible, effectively to cover all provinces, thus to provide access to the historically underserviced and marginalized areas of the country. We look forward to the involvement of many other service providers, so that reaching more clients expands further to support the electoral process. It will ensure that more voters have IDs and are therefore empowered to register and exercise their democratic right to vote. With regards to the rollout of the smart card ID card, initially we had prioritized senior citizens above 60 years of age and first-time applicants 16 years and above. This new Home Affairs service of applying at banks for civic documents will initially cater for young people between the ages of 30 to 35 years. Going forward, we intend to build the capacity to extend the system to other age categories. We are working also on making our services more accessible to persons with disabilities, and in particular those with visual difficulties. We encourage Home Affairs to keep up the good work and to continue relentlessly to improve on its management and identity and immigration. Great strides have been made in this regard. An important improvement in service delivery and security enhancement was the introduction of a full birth certificate at no cost for first-time applicants and issued on the spot. Let me thank the banking sector for their participation and resources that they had availed in this regard. Well done, private sector. I was happy when the minister said it's a first partnership in the world. That is South Africa, always a special country with special people. The department is engaged with the banks to find ways to expand the e-Home Affairs service to all their clients. In expanding its footprint, Home Affairs has correctly identified the human element as being a critical factor in service delivery. Consequently, it has launched the Muetapili or Leadership Initiative to train officials so that we can improve citizen care at Home Affairs. We want officials who deal directly with the public to be patient, caring, and helpful. Ladies and gentlemen, let me thank you all for supporting this innovation. As a country, we are making huge strides in this area of innovation. South Africa is known all over the world for what it does. It has done things that many people tend to South Africa if they've got problems to seek some advice and solutions. This makes many of us proud that we are in a country that is moving forward, and we are doing all we can to ensure that we are heading to a prosperous South Africa, given what we do. I'd like to thank everyone, including the citizens of this country, who are supportive of the actions that are being taken to better the quality of lives of our people. We also thank the private sector for proving that indeed government and business are working together more than ever before in our country. Together, we are moving South Africa forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. President, after you leave